Tuttle's testimony today. He's ill.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Craig Hickman. I represent Senate District 14, 11 towns in Southern Kennebec County. Today, we will be hearing testimony on 6 bills for public hearing, and then we will have some language reviews. Before we begin, I'm going to ask committee members to introduce themselves, and we will go from there. First is Representative Prescott.
Hello, I'm Dwayne Prescott, House District 17, which is Waterboro and part of Lyman.
Representative Pedworth.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sarah Pedworth. I represent House District 133 in the Blue Hill Peninsula. That includes Blue Hill, Brooksville, Brooklyn, Castine, Surrey, and Sedgwick.
Representative Morris.
Good morning. I'm Representative Joshua Morris. I represent the towns of Turner, Leeds, and Livermore, House District 75.
Representative Drinkwater.
Good morning, Representative Gary Drinkwater, District 121, representing the fine people of Elton, Argyle, Hudson, Corinth, and my hometown of Milford.
Representative Rader.
Hi, I'm Amy Rader. I represent District 125, which is a part of Bangor.
Representative Gear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do apologize for my late entry today and the spooky darkness of my image. We have had a power outage here. I'm Tracy Gear, representing House District 9, which is Kennebunkport, and the coastal parts of Biddeford and Kennebunk. And I might fall off at any time given the situation here. Thanks.
Representative Cuddy.
Hi, my name is Scott Cuddy. I represent House District 98, which is Winterport, Frankfort, Searsport, and Swanville. And I look forward to the ghost stories that Representative Gear will be telling us in a little bit.
Senator Garin, are you there?
I am. I am Senator Stacey Guerin, representing Senate District 10. I'm going to have my video off today in an effort to have a better signal.
Sounds good. And Representative Warren, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning. I'm Sophie Warren, representing my hometown here in Scarborough Coastal District 29.
Chairman Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Representative Mike Sylvester. I represent District 39, which includes the Eastern Peninsula portion of Portland and the Fighting Islands of Casco Bay, and which includes the U.S. Post Office, which burned down slightly after the pandemic started due to a gas leak. And so they've been in a temporary position, and now they are in the back of Hannigan's Market, which brings their slogan full circle: if they don't have it, you don't need it.
Thank you, committee. We also have with us our committee clerk, Alyssa Thompson, and our committee analyst, Mr. Stephen Langland. The order of bills that we will hear today is as follows for people who are going to listen in and testifiers to get ready. LD 182, LD 1041, LD 620, LD 703, LD 956, and we will close with LD 711. So 182, 1041, 620, 703, 956, and 711. I just want to remind people that this committee hearing will be streamed. It's on YouTube right now. It will also be streamed to our audio on our legislative website. So just remember that any testimony you give will be heard and recorded. Please keep your mics on mute until you are called to speak. It just helps with bandwidth issues. I want to also make sure that people know that when you are entered into the room to give testimony, there may be a delay when you come into the room. And I will ask our committee clerk to sort of keep people on deck and maybe enter 1 or 2 at a time so that we can have a more smooth process between testifiers. Everyone who testifies today will get 3 minutes to present their testimony. We will have a clock keeper. Will that be you today, Representative Sylvester?
It will indeed, Mr. Chair, and I will hold up my phone just like this and at the beginning of the testimony, and then at 30 seconds, hold it up again so that folks can see the timer going down. And then I will politely interrupt them at the end of their 3 minutes.
Thank you. Testimony is on the bills in front of us and on the bills in front of us only. Any testimony on something else will be considered out of order. I gently remind our committee members for the flow and function of a committee hearing, please to keep your questions direct, clarifying questions only. No pontificating, editorializing, or opinionating. We can do that in work session. And I will also say that if people do want to testify in favor or against any bill at any point in time, you may do so. That is your right. And then we can move through in that regard. So let me make sure on this day that I have said everything I need to say to folks. It doesn't look like we have a lot of people signed up for all of our bills, so we should be very efficient today. And again, the meeting will be broadcast, and it is being broadcast right now. So with that, if the committee is ready, I will open up the public hearing on LD 182, an act to expand the definition of essential worker to include retail and food service workers, presented by Representative Sean Paulus of Bath. I do not see the bill. There he is. Welcome, Representative.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone being here today. I will start. Thank you, Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and distinguished members of the Labor and Housing Committee. I am Sean Paulus, representative for House District 52, the City of Bath. And I'm glad to be here to present LD 182, an act to expand the definition of essential worker to include retail and food service workers. When the pandemic arrived, the 129th legislature took initial steps to facilitate a response and also to get relief to those who needed it. That body also gave the chief executive emergency powers to address the emerging crisis. As the nation struggled to contain COVID-19, people throughout the country showed their support for all the first responders and medical professionals who are taking care of the sick, maintaining order, and all too often witnessing tragedy and experiencing the trauma of so much suffering and death. You might recall the daily cheers at 6 p.m. coming from city windows. But throughout this pandemic, there also has been a second group of people risking and sometimes losing their lives to keep the lives of their fellow Mainers as bearable and as close to normal as possible during the times like this. There are our food service workers, our retail workers, and our grocery store employees. We have rightly called those folks heroes, and that's why it's so important to me that we have a legislative vehicle before this committee that guarantees the state of Maine will always take their needs and the value of their labor into account in the times of great difficulty. The purpose of this measure is to find a way to codify when we get into emergency situations like the one in which we are presently find ourselves, any benefits or protections that are put in place for essential workers, frontline workers, or whatever term we decide to use. Include the people who serve our food and takeout window, deliver things right to our door, and who ring up our hand sanitizers during a run to the store. We know how supportive the administration is of workers, but we also know that there could one day be future governors who face emergencies who may not make the same calls as our current governor has. That's why I feel that the need to come before this committee today to ensure that any broad essential worker protections that come into force during the next emergency automatically extend to the retail and food service professions, both of which are very much public-facing occupations. On another front, we also know that Maine has struggled when it comes to racial minorities experiencing a disproportionate share of the effects of the pandemic. Our CDC director, Dr. Shaw, has mentioned that one potential factor at play is the number of people from minority communities working jobs where the risk of exposure is higher. Jobs like the ones I've described above, and affirming the value of those professions and placing them on equal footing before the next emergency or before this one ends seems like a reasonable step to take. And given the attention we as the legislature are putting into bills, the one before you fits within the broader theme of the important work. Now, I just want to acknowledge that initially this was a concept draft, and the committee asked for some language. So we do have an amendment to this bill. And basically the amendment, the language that will be presented in this amendment is the definition of who is an essential worker based off of the federal guidelines. And so I figured that was a good place to start, since the state of Maine didn't have any actual definition of an essential worker in statute. And I appreciate the committee's work. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Representative, for presenting the bill. Are there any questions from committee for the sponsor? I just have a brief one, and that is, yes, thank you for putting in a bill for our essential workers on the front lines of feeding our people. What inspired you to put this bill in other than your testimony? Was it a request from any workers in your district, or was it just something you felt was important to do?
No one asked. This was just something that I felt from seeing what we've been just everyday kind of work and interacting with people, that I felt this was a good conversation we should, as a legislature, should be having to discuss.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no more questions. Well, I'm sorry, I'm mistaken. Representative Prescott.
I will defer to Representative Gear. I believe she had her hand up first.
Representative Gear. Thank you, Representative.
Oh, okay. We probably were in a tie there, Representative Prescott. Just curious, Representative Paulus, how you determined the groups in this bill that you're including?
So again, thank you for that question, Representative Gear. When we first came to the committee over a month ago, it was as a concept draft to work with the committee, but I was asked to work with the analysts to come up with some language. And in that conversation, there was a discussion that there was no actual definition of an essential worker. And so we used the guidelines from the federal government that we're currently kind of following to use. It's not a end all be all, the language that we have in front. So I know there are some groups that aren't in it yet, but have voiced opinions on it that they're not listed. So it's more of a starter, conversation starter with the committee, and see, what the meaning of essential workers and who should be included in that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Prescott.
Oh, thank you. When will we see the amendment? And can somebody send us a link directly to the federal definition so we can compare and see what we're working on?
Yes, I know the analyst. Hopefully you'll have it here very soon to look at. sorry about that.
Thank you.
Representative Sylvester.
I just asked Steve if he could put the amendment in the chat, and so that should be coming shortly. There should be a link to that directly. I don't know if there will be a link directly to the federal.
We will make sure that we have that comparison language for work session, if that pleases the committee. Are there any other questions for Representative Paulus from the committee? Going once, going twice. Thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
We will now move to testimony from the general public. We begin with testimony in favor of, then followed by testimony in opposition to, and then testimony neither for nor against the bill. Today we have signed up 4 members. We will hear first testimony in opposition to the bill, since there's no testimony in favor signed up, from the Maine Emergency Management Agency, followed by testimony neither for nor against. And there are 3 testifiers, the Retail Association of Maine, Hospitality Maine, and MSEA. So Ms. Thompson, if you could please let into our space all of them, and we can just move right through. Thank you. First up, I don't want to mispronounce your name, sir. So I'm going to say Joe from Maine Emergency Management Agency, and listen to very carefully to how you introduce yourself. Thank you for being here.
Sure thing. Thank you everyone for having me here today. My name is Joe Legee, and I am the Deputy Director at Maine Emergency Management Agency. So Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and distinguished members of the Committee on Labor and Housing. I've already introduced myself. My name is Joe Legee, and I am the Deputy Director at Maine Emergency Management Agency. And I'm here today to provide testimony in opposition to LD 182, an act to expand the definition of essential worker to include retail and food service workers. This amendment defines essential businesses and operations and essential worker to mean any employee employed at an essential business and operation at the time the governor declares a state of emergency. Between a global pandemic, landslide, and shark attack, if the events of 2020 have taught us anything at all, it's of the need to be flexible. As FEMA's comprehensive preparedness guidance reads, plans are not scripts followed to the letter, but are flexible and adaptable to the actual situation. It is FEMA's belief that defining essential businesses and operations and essential worker in law is too limiting and restricts the flexibility necessary to react to the unpredictability of emergency situations. Instead, essential businesses and operations and essential worker should be defined based on the needs dictated by the disaster response and based on the nature of the event. For example, in response to COVID-19, the Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, DHS CISA, originally distributed guidance on the essential critical infrastructure workforce in March 19, 2020. Since that original guidance was distributed, it has been revised a total of 4 times to meet the evolving needs of this one disaster. One disaster, 4 revisions to the definition of critical infrastructure workforce. Finally, the term essential is problematic, as the definition varies depending upon the sector and/or situation. We've seen the term essential, critical, and emergency all used interchangeably. This concludes my testimony, and I stand ready to answer any questions you might have and to participate in any work session that might result on this bill. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Legee, for your testimony. Are there any questions from the committee? Chairman Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Mr. Legee. I would have certainly Frenchified your name into Legee, so we appreciate that. I'm curious. So you find that we are conforming with the federal definition, even if we were to automatically reconform in the bill, that would be too limiting?
Right. The dynamic environment of disasters is just such that even for one disaster, taking COVID as the example, that list that was distributed by the federal government as an outline, as guidance, has changed 4 times already. So it becomes a very difficult process to really define essential in terms of a singular disaster.
Quick follow-up, Mr. Chair?
May.
I'm just curious if you found it limiting in any way not to have a definition of any sort on the books in terms of trying to implement law to law and rule to rule.
That's a good question. Was it limiting not to have a definition? No, I mean, I think it provided some freedom to have conversations about how we define essential in the context of that particular disaster. So I think that flexibility was key so that we could have that conversation and then make whatever changes to that definition were required based on that situation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here.
Thank you all.
Next up is Curtis Picard from the Retail Association of Maine, testifying neither for nor against.
Good morning, Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and members of the Labor and Housing Committee. I'm Curtis Picard, President and CEO of the Retail Association of Maine. I originally signed up to testify neither for nor against, but I think after hearing the testimony from Maine Emergency Management System, I'd like to register our opposition to the bill. I'll just add a few things and I won't take a lot of your time. First of all, the Retail Association of Maine has had a longstanding memorandum of understanding with Maine Emergency Management Agency, like a lot of other trade associations. When a disaster happens, and prior to COVID-19, most of the disasters that we deal with here in Maine are weather related and that are short term in scope. And so our members, retailers, are critical to usual recovery efforts that are involved with an ice storm or flooding or you name it. And especially our larger retailers have a lot of tools at their disposal to either move generators or roofing equipment or food, water, those critical items that you need in a typical disaster. Obviously, this past year was far beyond what anybody anticipated, and I hope that we never have to deal with it again in any of our lifetimes. But I would just say that I absolutely agree with Maine Emergency Management Agency that flexibility is key, and that this amendment, as it's been drafted, is somewhat problematic, especially the definition of a retail establishment, which includes basically anybody who is selling anything. And so through the pandemic, when we were dealing with certain businesses being open or not, there was a lot of thought that went into that. And as the Emergency Management Agency said, flexibility is key. So I'm happy to stop there and answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Picard. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Next is Mr. Gregory Dugo from Hospitality, Maine.
Good morning, Senator Hickman and Representative Sylvester. My name is Greg Dougal and I'm representing Hospitality, Maine here today. And I'll be perfectly honest, I am neither for nor against, simply for the fact that I really didn't know much about this bill and I wanted to be educated as best as I could and also have the opportunity to speak. Unlike being in the committee room where you can just get up after you've decided that you need to say something, you can't very well do that here. And so I just want to echo a little bit of what Curtis said. I mean, we really never achieved essential worker status for restaurant workers, or it was a little dubious on the food side, but it never really truly occurred through the governor's office, nor lodging either. We think our folks are very essential and we think they provided an essential service. But having said that, as the MEMA representative and Mr. Picard said, you do need flexibility in a situation like this. Not all states of emergency are going to be driven by the same cause, and there may be very well different, types of job classifications that would need to be deemed essential in any particular time. So I'll just leave it at that, and obviously appreciate always being part of the process. So thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Dougal. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Good day.
Thank you.
Jeff McCabe.
Good morning, everyone. Senator
Morning.
Hickman, Representative Sylvester, members of the Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Jeff McCabe, the Director of Politics and Legislation for Maine Service Employees Association. You'll get to see me a lot today. It is one of those days where there are many bills that we would like to weigh in on. We are here today, neither for nor against, mostly based on the fact that we need more time to sort of look at this amendment, to discuss this. We've been on a series of emails with other public sector unions this morning to discuss what this definition may mean for all of us. And while we support the concept of this legislation and the goal of protecting and compensating essential workers, we have some concerns about the way that the designation may cut both ways. That's why we're here today, neither for nor against. And I want to be sure that you all recognize that the folks that we represent have been deemed essential throughout this pandemic. And that's from the start. That continues to be the case. And these are folks who have put their health, safety, and lives on the line during this pandemic. I think for us, we have always struggled with not having a definition clear in regards to essential employees. And I think the question was asked, is it challenging not to define that? And I believe that was asked by Chair Sylvester, and that is challenging. The folks that we represent have been deemed essential when it comes to duties of working and carrying out their tasks. But then at the same time, when it comes down to prioritization and other things for vaccines, that necessarily hasn't been the case. So this is not sort of a very easy issue for us. It's one that we would like to discuss further. I know the definition of essential worker has come up in the past with this committee on other bills, and we stand ready to work with the committee through the work session as this bill is hashed out. And again, we appreciate the bill's sponsor for bringing this forward. And as I've said before, these folks that were discussed by the bill sponsor in regards to retail and food service folks have really truly been the heroes of this pandemic. And I think that can't be stated enough. And we owe those folks a great deal of gratitude, respect, and also compensation as well. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCabe. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, we will see you shortly.
Thank you.
That does it for those who have signed up to testify on LD 182. And with that,
Mr. Chair, I think there might have been, Lisa was communicating, there might have been a technical problem with one of the sponsors. Alyssa, is there somebody waiting? Or is that for another bill?
It's for another bill.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Does the committee need anything for the work session that has not already been requested? I will close the public hearing on LD 182. I will allow Ms. Thompson to change the screen. And then I will open up the public hearing on LD 1041, an act to include certain mental health workers under the 1998 Special Plan for Retirement presented by President Troy Jackson of Aroostook.
I am not seeing President Jackson. Would you guys like me to give him a call? I don't see President Jackson. Would you like me to give him a call?
Yes, please. Thank you. That wasn't loud enough.
Sorry.
It's okay. We will be at ease for a minute.
Just as I was about to call, I think it must have been Rose called me, and he'll be on in just a second. He's getting set up.
And so just for people listening in, again, we will hear LD 1041 followed by LD 620, 703, 956, and we will finish with LD 711. President Jackson.
Hello, all set, Senator?
Yes, we are.
Okay, well, thank you. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Troy Jackson. I have the honor of serving as President of the Maine Senate, representing Northern Aroostook County. I'm here today to lend my support to LD 1041, an act to include certain mental health workers under the 1998 Special Plan for Retirement. This bill adds mental health workers employed in October 1, 2021 and hired thereafter who provide direct care to persons in need of mental health services from the Department of Health and Human Services, the 1998 Special Plan of the Maine Public Employees Retirement System. These workers are committed individuals who are willing to care for clients who can be unpredictable and are sometimes, unfortunately, violent. The dire situation is well acknowledged. Last week, the Health and Human Services Committee heard LD 629, a resolve to establish a task force to study ways to improve safety and protect healthcare workers from violence in mental health hospitals. Information was supplied on behalf of the state, on the staff of Dorothea Dix Psychiatric Center and Riverview Psychiatric Center. Within the testimony, the superintendent and clinical director of Dorothea Dix stated the following. The hospitals may be court-ordered to admit patients who cannot be safely managed in an inpatient setting. The hospitals specialize in treatment of those patients who are committed to the treatment because of dangerous behaviors, either to themselves or others, and the treatment of that dangerous behavior may have some association with misdirected, aggressive, or impulsive acts. The treatment brings mental health care workers, as part of their assigned duties, in direct contact with patients who may exhibit this degree of violent behavior. Finally, the testimony indicates that within this challenging environment, the staff has experienced injurious assaults in the workplace. If this task force is funded, it may suggest ways to create a safer environment in the future, but the stress and injuries that these dedicated workers have been in and will be subjugated to cannot be alleviated. Obviously, the 1998 special plan is complicated, yet adding these deserving employees to the plan is one way we can recognize the difficulties faced by them each and every day they step through the doors of the workplace. I believe you're going to hear from some of these employees today that can give you a much better understanding of what's going on there. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are there any questions from the committee? I do not see any hands raised. And in that case, you are excused, sir.
Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it.
We will now move to testimony in favor of LD 1041. I have Adam Good, Arthur Robbins, Hillary Twaddell. If you could please admit all of those to the room, Ms. Thompson. And after they testify, it will be Jeff McCabe, Larry McIver, Matthew Pritchard, and Kathy Morin. Good morning, Mr. Good. You may proceed.
Excellent. Appreciate, I think the alphabetical by first name process that perhaps this committee goes in, because I seem like I'm always first. Good morning, Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, members of the Labor and Housing Committee. My name is Adam Good. I'm the Legislative and Political Director at the Maine AFL-CIO. We represent 40,000 working people in the state of Maine. We work to improve the lives and working conditions of our members and all working people. This bill adds public sector mental health workers who provide direct care in a community-based or residential setting, or to residents or participants of mental health institutions to the 1998 Special Plan for MEPers members. Working people who serve the public as mental health workers perform emotionally strenuous and physically demanding work. These workers provide a great public benefit to everyone while facing danger, risking injury, and being exposed to communicable diseases daily. It is a hallmark of the labor movement that working people should be able to retire with dignity and respect. This bill helps correct an inequity that has only increased as mental health workers have seen the risks of their work increase in recent years, both before and especially during the pandemic. We are aware that there are other efforts before this committee to make changes to the 1998 Special Plan that benefit working people. As you work on fixing the problems with the system that results in workers being left out of the opportunity to retire with dignity and respect, we ask that you make sure mental health workers providing direct care in state correctional facilities and psychiatric centers be included. Don't have a lot else to add. I'm well under my 3 minutes here, and I believe there are some folks who are actually doing this work and being exposed to these risks and dangers who are prepared to speak and think that they're probably more deserving of your attention than I am. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Good. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none.
Morning.
Next up, Mr. Arthur Robbins. We cannot hear you, sir. Try again.
How about now?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
You're on.
Hi, I'm a crisis worker, and I do not work in one of the institutions, but we do community-based crisis services. And
So
we
can
work.
you hold on one second? I'm sorry. I should have mentioned that I need you please to introduce yourself by name and where you are from. And if you are testifying on behalf of an agency or just yourself. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Arthur Robbins. I work for DHHS ODE's crisis team. I work out of Portland, Maine. We're a crisis prevention intervention team, and we cover the state of Maine. I work at 3 counties in southern Maine, and we work with a specific population of adults that have diagnosis of developmental disability, brain injury, and often coupled with mental health issues and substance abuse. The job entails responding to folks when either they themselves reach out due to some crisis situation or by someone else reaching out on their behalf. We often respond and work alone. Sometimes we'll have a coworker join us if it's expected to be a difficult call. Mostly we don't know until we get there. Our job, once we arrive at a situation, is to quickly make an assessment for safety and attempt to figure out what went wrong and try to calm the situation down. Due to the very nature of the folks we serve, some of the folks exhibit much more dangerous and challenging behaviors than others. They may have limited ability to control their outburst, may have communication deficits, they lack self-control, and often do not fear any repercussions for any of their maladaptive behavior. Sometimes they're living in supported homes in the community and have staff, and we're called to come in and assist. Other times it's private residence where they live alone. Sometimes they're living with family members. Sometimes they're on the streets. Crisis workers, we attempt to de-escalate, and we are restraint trained, which we have to do for safety as necessary. This is where the real danger of our job lies. To attempt to physically restrain a young adult safely in the community or in their private residence and keep them and others safe is difficult and precarious. You need training, yes, but you also need the strength and agility to perform this safely. You know, you can imagine, try to imagine being a 60-year-old and being required to attempt to restrain safely a 20-year-old without anyone getting hurt. You think, why would a 60-year-old want a job that requires this? The short answer is no 60-year-old would want to come and sign up to do this job, except those that have been doing this as a career for many years. And now they continue to do so because they're not quite old enough to collect their earned retirement without paying a large financial penalty. So instead, you get these 60-year-olds who continue to do this difficult work and risk possible serious work injury with either long recovery time or possible permanent disability.
Mr. Robbins?
Yes.
Unfortunately, that is the end of your 3 minutes. I wonder if you could summarize your thoughts, and I'm sure that someone will have a question for you to ask if there's anything that you missed.
Okay. I hope I can explain that. My 3 minutes went faster. I had a couple more. I had an example of somebody, but we are advocating to be part of the 1998 Special Retirement Plan. Our job, you need to be physically fit enough to safely perform and restraints necessary to keep people safe, and you have to be agile and quick enough to be able to respond to young people in the community that are acting out.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. Questions from the committee. Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Robbins. Interesting testimony. So if I'm hearing you and I'm trying to learn as we're listening to people, you get called to a situation which would be a group home or private residency. And do you normally take somebody with you, like a social worker or an officer? And do you know the background of this person usually before you get there, or are these all cold calls?
We have people that we call frequent flyers that we would know, but a lot of the times there's people we don't know. And we also work 24/7. So we're called in when there's no other supports in place. We're called anytime, but a lot of times there's nobody to take with us because it's a weekend, it's an overnight, it's a holiday, and it could be somebody living with their grandparents that are taking care of them, and their grandparents can no longer manage their behavior because the people have gotten bigger, stronger, they're used to acting out to get what they want, and now they become dangerous.
Mr. Chair, may I just have a quick follow-up?
You may.
Thank you, sir. Of all those calls that you're talking about, we like data on this committee. Do you have data showing us how many times that you are involved in a physical altercation?
We have a system that we capture that, and we do reportable events. I don't have that, like how often that is currently, no.
All right, thank you, sir.
Representative Sylvester.
Steve, for the work session, I wonder if we can try and find that info, if that's reported in the system through DHHS. Welcome, Mr. Robbins. I remember your testimony well from last session when this bill came forward, and I'll just open with: did you have an example that you were hoping to give us today?
Yes, there was a 58-year-old crisis worker that sustained a serious head injury not too long ago, a couple years ago, from a client, and it cost over $100,000 in treatment, not counting the lost wages and cost to cover shifts. That person sadly ended up not being able to return to work due to permanent disability.
Thank you. Quick follow-up, Mr. Chair.
May.
One of the things that, and perhaps it's for somebody who's coming after you, but one of the things I remember distinctly about your testimony, yourself and your colleagues from last time, was how this department sort of came to be as a transition from another department, and how sort of the disconnectedness that you have to others. So I wondered if you might be just other groups in DHHS. I wondered if you might talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the crisis team came into being after Pineland Center closed down, and that served people with developmental disabilities. So once that happened, we no longer worked in an institution. So everything's community-based. People live out in the community. The difference between an institution based in community is you cannot get instant help when you want to. So if things go south, if you get into a dangerous situation, the most you can hope for is maybe calling the police. You could call 911, but then you're dealing with an operator saying, "What's your emergency? Where are you? What's going on?" You get all those questions while an emergency is happening in front of you. There's a big difference.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony, Mr. Robbins.
Thank you.
Next up is Hillary Twaddle. If I pronounced that incorrectly, I apologize. Welcome.
Okay. It's Twaddle, and I work for the crisis team from DHS. And I have worked on the crisis team for 6 years. And before this, I worked for the Department of Corrections. And under the Department of Corrections, I would have qualified for the 25-55 retirement plan, which means I hold a unique perspective because I work for both departments. While working for DOC, I was in charge of several pods to include mental health, the intake pod, general pod, both. I work male and female. I experience incidences such as behavioral health episodes, fights between inmates, self-harm, suicide. I even had sexual harassment towards myself, which went into investigation. But when I was there, I had ongoing treatment, COs that were trained in lethal and non-lethal methods. I had extraction team, hostage negotiation, canine units, medical and mental health. They were all right there. Since transferring to the crisis team, however, I've learned that there are many similarities between the two jobs, but it's different in the fact that we're in the field. Our crisis home is at an unpublished address, and that's to protect our clients and ourselves. These clients are developmentally disabled or brain injury. They have mental health disabilities. They are victims of sex trafficking or abuse. We are responsible for their care, their custody. We're there to encourage positive developmental, mental, and social skills. We are there for hygiene, nutrition. Sometimes we have to do hand over hand. And we're also certified and responsible for medication as well. Whether working in the crisis house or field, we are working directly with them, their families, caseworkers, police, state police, sometimes out-of-state police, game wardens. We do work with the prison system and jail system, group homes, courts, hospitals, and other medical professionals. I think I have two examples real quickly about two different days that I can remember that I think really emphasize what it's like. There was one day that I responded to an off-grid home, and he stated he did not want law enforcement there because he had a fear and mistrust of law enforcement. There was winter when I arrived. There was no cell service. I showed up alone, but when I showed up, there were several firearms on the property. My coworkers were the only ones that knew where I was. However, he was without heat or food. So from this experience, you can see this could have potentially gotten out of control very quickly. Fortunately, we were able to serve him, give him food and water. Another time I was in the crisis house, and the crisis client had eloped. She had ran. She ran through the woods, and she was running towards the main turnpike. And her intention, as she was screaming, was to commit suicide by running into the oncoming traffic. We were able to chase her down, and we did have to do a physical restraint on the side of the highway, which you can imagine with traffic coming down at 50 plus miles an hour can be, intimidating with someone that is fighting your restraint until police and ambulance could show up. We also had to.
Adele?
Yes?
Unfortunately, that is the end of your 3 minutes. I wonder if you could
That is
finish
okay.
thoughts here and
No, just basically we're on 24/7, 365. Everything we do is legal, so it has to be fully documented. And, we deal with verbal, nonverbal, deaf, blind, medicated, over-medicated, under-medicated, suicidal, and a lot of our clients are victims or frightened, scared, and all of these things, affect us as well as them. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your work. Questions from the committee. Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your testimony. I talked to some visiting nurses, and they go into a lot of these houses also as part of their job. What's your thoughts on them being eligible for the special 98 plan also?
For nursing?
Yes, visiting nurses.
The only nursing that I am personally aware of that goes into the group homes are the nurses that work with the agencies themselves. So
They certainly finished.
So I don't know what I can say to speak to them about them, because we don't. When we do speak with them, we are communicating with them, but it's more. We more communicate with advocating for the client.
Thank you for your answer. Representative Drinkwater, please keep your questions to the bill in front of us. Thank you. Do you have any other questions for her regarding the bill in front of us?
No, I'm all set. Thank you, sir.
Representative Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was struck, as I was last time, about when you walk into the home, that it's not just this person who's there, but also anybody else who might happen to be there in the home. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, about, situations where, family and other, might present as much of a danger as the person that you're coming to visit.
Absolutely. Sometimes when we go into homes, the caregiver is just as much in crisis as the client, because when the client is in crisis, the caregiver is overwhelmed. We deal a lot with SLOs, which are shared living providers. So they are coming into a home that is, a shared space, but is not necessarily their own. It's not their parent. It's someone that is providing a space for them to live in. So they are, sharing a space with someone that is not necessarily theirs. They're going to care for them. And now this person's in crisis, could be doing property damage or escalated. And they don't really know how to react to that. They're not trained as well as they should. They call us. We try to de-escalate, as much as possible by physically going to them and helping them and giving them new tools. But they can be just as escalated as well. And sometimes we do get phone calls, hours later, with them trying to de-escalate the situation because they were escalated as well, which only escalates the situation even more. So sometimes not only are we de-escalating the client, we're de-escalating the caregiver all at the same time. And usually we go solo, which can be a complicated situation.
Thank you. Appreciate your work and your testimony today.
Representative Rader.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I have one quick question for you, a little bit of clarity. The situation that you mentioned with the off-grid home, were you going into that situation alone? And if so, how often are folks going in alone?
I did go in alone. I would say that most of our calls at this point, we are going alone. We try to go in as a pair for safety reasons. However, we're a team of 12 and we're on 365, 24/7. So, due to staffing, due to, we deal with York, Cumberland, Oxford County, we could have a crisis call in York and a crisis call in Rumford. And because of that, we have 2 crisis workers in 2 different areas and they're 2 hours away and we're our own backup. So, we try to do as much as possible together. However, realistically, it doesn't happen often, if at all.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your answer.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Ms. Twaddell, my question is simply about training. How much training do you receive before doing this work? I heard you say you worked for the Department of Corrections, but anyone that would be coming into this particular job that you hold right now, how much training is there and can you characterize it for me?
I think, okay, so when you do come into the field, we do get a 3 to 6 month, you follow around a crisis worker training. There are some, computer training and things that you do have. And then after that, probationary, period, it's just your yearly trainings that we get. We are able to take more trainings throughout the year. We get a lot of, the webinars thrown at us and things like that. And if we also see something on the side, we are able to take other trainings as well, depending on our interests. We have some people that really like working with law enforcement. We do talk to law enforcement a lot about our services to help with them. We'll go into different agencies and talk about our services and help, try to alleviate some of their stress as well. So, or hospitals to try to talk to them about our services, so everyone, putting a square peg in a square hole, trying to help each other out, so everyone can work together. So, each person on the team kind of has their own little niche of what they're interested in, and they do trainings based on that typically, but we do have our standard trainings as well.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions from the committee, I appreciate your testimony today and very much appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you.
Next up, Jeff McCabe, followed by Larry McIver, Matthew Pritchard, and Kathy Mooring.
Again, good morning. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, members of the Labor and Housing Committee. My name is Jeff McCabe. I am the Director of Politics and Legislation for Maine Service Employees Association. I will stray a little bit today in regards to my remarks based on some of the questions that have come up as well as the general discussion. We understand that these issues around special retirement are complex. They are many years in the making, and they are issues that return to the legislature in some cases year after year. I think that what the committee is seeing, and I've had a number of questions from committee members on and offline in recent weeks in regards to the retirement system, but what I think that you're seeing is, as the continued age of retirement has been forced up, it is forcing many of these workers who are in very physically demanding jobs, very mentally demanding jobs as well, to come forward to the legislature to bring forward their concerns. These are folks that face danger, risk injury, risk being exposed to a number of communicable diseases. And during this pandemic, that job has only worsened for many of them. I think as this committee deliberates on this issue, as well as a number of retirement issues, we will bring forth, and I will submit some written testimony of some other models that exist in states like Minnesota, states like Massachusetts, that define interactions that people have with folks under state care, folks that may work in state hospitals, folks that may work in the prison setting, and others, to sort of define who's eligible for special retirement. I think that over time, due to the fact that these are issues that need to be legislated and legislative changes need to be made, has only made this issue sort of more complicated and challenging. I also want folks to recognize, you've heard from folks, workers in different settings. You will continue to hear from more folks as well about the types of dangers that they face. And I want you to think also and reflect on the fact that many of these injuries are not only physical in nature. It's something that the state of Maine needs to take a harder look at, really to think about what the best fit for retirement for many of these folks are. And I think, we're here today in support of LD 1041, but we also want to say outside the bill, it's probably time for this committee and others to sort of look at the state retirement system and really see if it is done in a manner that is fair and equitable to the folks that are doing work that probably deserve to be part of the special retirement plan. So that's for law enforcement as well as non-law enforcement folks that seem to be stuck in a gray area. I have to say it was very helpful for the speaker before me to share a personal story of somebody who was working for the DOC under one retirement plan, and then upon transferring to doing such important, vital, physically demanding work, is now part of a much longer retirement plan and really stuck in a tough situation there by straddling both those plans. So look forward to working with the committee on this as well as other situations, and we will share a document very shortly with the committee around sort of resources around retirement. And I have said this before to this committee, and I'll say it again today. It's very challenging to bring people forth for these issues, which sometimes can feel like a popularity contest. I think that we come forward to the legislature, we have individuals share their stories.
Mr. McCabe, yeah, I thought we were on a wrap up here, so I didn't interrupt you at 3 minutes, but if you could conclude your thoughts. We're about 30 seconds over.
Absolutely. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCabe. Are there any questions from the committee? Representative Rader.
Thank you so much. Mr. McCabe, you mentioned several states that have defined this. Do you have an example of, just anecdotally, one of the state's definitions, one of the state's statutes, anything like that you could share right now? Great.
Absolutely. And I will look for some of this maybe dated information, but I know in the past when I've looked to other states, I believe it was Minnesota, they often define their special retirement plan or pick up folks in this situation if 75% of their time is, directly spent taking care of, inmate care. I know Massachusetts as well defines, outside of, police, court officers, corrections officers, folks who their major duties require them to provide care to those folks that might be in custody or under supervision of the state. So, those would all would pick up these folks. They also have folks that receive a direct care stipend as well, which, folks in these situations may as well as the supervision of persons with mental illness or developmental disabilities. So, those are all, I think, models that I'm not saying necessarily this is a one size fits all model, but I think that Maine should start to look at sort of some definitions like those.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Mr. Larry McIver.
Yes, my name's Larry McIver. I work on the DS crisis team, the same as Art and Hillary. I work in the Augusta region, and I cover a much physically larger area than they do. I cover 11 counties. I've been doing this for 17 years, and I've walked into people's houses alone, not knowing what I'm going to expect, and been in altercations, and it was completely on me. So I've got the stress of assessing a situation. I'm looking at Mr. Senator Hickman's background. It's a nightmare for a crisis worker to walk into a room that looks like that because of all the objects that I think that I might be hit with sharp corners and stuff. This is the world I'm living in. I go in, Pebworth is the same way. I look at that and I'm just like, oh God, there's a brick fireplace. I have to take that into account in case I have to wrestle around with somebody. This is how I perceive the world. I don't have the ability of a cop that has a mechanical restraint where they can either use their cuffs or a stun gun or throw someone in the back of a cruiser. I don't have that. I don't have a mechanical or chemical restraint that the hospitals use to strap someone down to a bed or give them a shot that's going to put them to sleep. It's me. I work 12 and 16-hour shifts. I've done restraints on a couple of shifts for 8 hours, almost straight. High school wrestlers do 5-minute rounds, 3 rounds. Boxers do 3-minute rounds. UFC do 5-minute rounds. I did 6 to 8 hours on my knees, on my hips, with 2 other people doing restraints to stop someone from beating their head on the floor to cause themselves injury. The amount of time that you can do that for, I mean, it's got to be limited. I don't want to die because the state thinks that a 55-year-old should take on a 19-year-old in a wrestling match on the side of a road. That's pretty much all I have.
Thank you, MacGyver, for your testimony. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, Representative Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. MacIver, welcome. I'm wondering if you could expand on a question that was hinted at later or earlier about the sort of training that you receive, particularly about both verbal and physical de-escalation and restraint. So if you come in as a new employee, what sort of training do you receive in those ways, and what sort of ongoing training do you receive?
So when you come in, you go into a restraint training that we just changed over to a couple years ago called Safety Care. And I think it's 3 or 4 days is the 6 to 8 hours per day. A lot of it is book work. The last 2 days are working on the physical holds and releases and how to manage people in given situations. There's an advanced safety care where it deals with things like if a TV is thrown at you or if someone has a knife, which is a little bit more in depth. But that's one of those situations where the training says, oh, do this with 2 or 3 people. Well, it's just me. So a lot of the things that we're even trained on aren't useful. We don't have a just single person restraint for all situations, like how to do one on the floor, how to do one on a seated or whatever. A seated one requires one on each side holding down arms and pinning them to a chair. Well, what if there's no chair and what if there's no second person? It doesn't work. We do get a refresher every year, and a lot of it is just going over. So it's the body mechanics and muscle memory to try and get it become second nature. If someone threw a punch at me right now out on the street, I would immediately deflect it and put them into a one-arm restraint, whether or not it was a normal person or a client. And then I would just be like, oh, well, I didn't mean to do that, but that's just how I'm trained.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. McGyver. Are there any other questions from the committee? I think you kind of already answered this question, but I'll ask you to give it another example if you choose to. I am obviously struck by how you see the world, the backgrounds that we have here and what that means to you. When you are off the clock, how does that affect you?
My wife and I were getting ice cream last summer, and there was a guy that was shifting around a lot, kind of jerky motions. Don't know if he was on something or whatever. And my wife noticed that I stepped out of my sandals, and she said, "Why did you get out of your sandals?" I said, "I don't want to trip on them in case I have to do something with this guy." I was getting myself into the position ready to go because I think that this guy was mentally unstable or something. Turns out, he was just waiting for ice cream and he was just shifting around a lot, and he might have had something going on, but nothing that needed attention. But that's the type of thing where it's just going to get ice cream. I'm looking at things that are going to be threats to me, my wife, and I now have an 11-month-old, so now I have to open my radar to that as well.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony today, and thank you for your 17 years of service in a most difficult position.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Matthew Pritchard, or Pritchard, again, I apologize. I probably ought not try.
Yeah, it says you guys have stopped my video, so I'm trying to click on my video, but all right, so there we go.
There we go.
Hello.
Okay.
My name is Matthew Pritchard, and I work with DHHS ODES for the crisis team down in the Portland area. I've been working here for almost 4 years. In the past, I've worked in juvenile corrections. I've worked in mental health facilities before coming to ODES. I'm testifying in favor of LD 1041, and I'm a crisis worker. So as a crisis worker, I'm sent into many situations in the community with a client. It's a crisis situation, so the client's already escalated. The situation's already escalated. So like my coworkers said, we have to kind of think on our feet, kind of make decisions on the fly, depending on what we see at that moment. We always try to de-escalate first before it comes to anything physical. But sometimes it does come to that. I have worked alongside police on many calls out on the street and in homes. I've restrained people with police. I have actually had a couple incidences as a crisis worker where I've actually had to pick someone up, a client out of state, when he was getting released from a state prison, and a coworker and myself, we had to attempt to transport him back to a group home. Just me and a coworker, and this person had been in state prison for 2 years with a history of assaultive behaviors, and they were very mentally unstable. Well, that person ended up going AWOL on the ride back to the group home, and we ended up, having to try to de-escalate the guy, but it turned out we had to call the police because it got so dangerous. There's been another incident where I've been doing crisis work, and a client has smashed the windows out to a coworker's vehicle, smashed the windows out to a state vehicle, and with probably a softball-sized boulder. And then he went to get another boulder and smashed my coworker's head in with it, and I had to physically intervene to save my coworker because my coworker was over 55 and was much smaller than this person and would have had a hard time protecting themselves. Like I said, I've worked in juvenile corrections, mental health facilities, as well as this job, and I feel like it does take a mental and physical toll on you over time. Some people know how to deal with it better than others. But that's why I'm in favor of the 25-55 retirement plan, just because of the stress that a crisis worker deals with day in and day out. It can be mentally and physically exhausting.
Thank you, Mr. Pritchard. Are there any questions from the committee? Representative Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Pritchard, I'm curious, if not one of the ODES team is not available, who gets called on as the default on this sort of crisis?
If one of the ODES team isn't available to go to a call.
Yep.
Well, usually there's someone taking calls and there's someone on, there's a backup person. Right now, that's what's happening. So if one crisis worker can't go, the person that's taking the call can't go to that call, then the backup person will be contacted to go to that call. But not together, because we could, like Larry said, and Hillary said, we could be an hour away from each other. We're just communicating by phone to deal with those calls.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Matthew.
Yep.
Appreciate your work.
Any other questions from the committee? Mr. Pritchard, when you are in a situation and you have to call law enforcement, what is the average response time?
Well, that's a last resort. We try not to call law enforcement. We try to take care of it ourselves. But when law enforcement needs to be called, honestly, I have to say it varies. Some are real responsive, but some, when we state it's the crisis team, some law enforcement knows who we are, so they tend to respond a little slower, I would have to say.
I'm sorry. That surprises me. Can you think that they slowly when they know?
Some in my opinion, some agencies like sheriffs, like we've dealt with sheriffs a lot, so sheriffs kind of know who the crisis team is in our area, so they know we're trained at de-escalation, and they know, I believe they know we have a better understanding of how to keep ourselves safe. So I've seen in the past that response time has been kind of slow, in my opinion.
And do you know if they are aware that they are called as a last resort, meaning that you have pretty much gotten to a place where you need that help?
I'm not sure. I know I've worked with a Portland Police Department. They have a mental health liaison, I believe the job title is. And I've actually worked hand in hand with them in a crisis situation, and they knew who I was and I knew who they were. So but I don't believe all law enforcement, the majority, I don't believe they have as much information as them.
Okay. So one last question. And do you think that there could be a benefit to some cross-jurisdictional communication and training?
Yes. And from what I've seen, the mental health liaison with the Portland PD was almost like an extra crisis worker working with the PD. They were very good. They knew how to analyze the situation we were in. They knew this, the mental condition of the person, and we were actually able to de-escalate that situation. But I believe more of that type of police work, when there's more dealing with mental health sort of things, I believe that's a benefit.
Thank you. Thank you for your
welcome.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
That concludes testimony in favor of the bill. I would like to welcome Representative Bradstreet. I see he has joined us. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Yes, Senator, I would. I'm Representative Dick Bradstreet. I represent House District 80, and that's made up of Vassalboro, Windsor, Somerville, and part of Augusta.
Thank you. We will now turn to testimony neither for nor against. Kathy Morin. Good morning.
Good morning. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Kathy Morin. I'm the Manager of Actuarial and Legislative Affairs for the Maine Public Employees Retirement System. Maine PERS is neither for nor against LD 1041. We're here to provide information and offer any assistance that the committee might need regarding this bill. Most state employees are covered by the state regular plan, which requires 25 years of service and or attainment of normal retirement age of 60, 62, or 65. Special plans typically allow for retirement with fewer years of service and or at a younger age. Because of the more favorable provisions of the special plans, they are more expensive to fund. Under the 1998 special plan, participants become eligible to retire in one of two ways: by accruing 25 years of service in a covered capacity, or by accruing 25 years under the special plan and attaining age 55. Under the first provision, all service in a covered capacity is counted toward meeting the 25-year requirement, while under the second provision, only service earned in a covered capacity after the date the specific group is added to the plan is included toward that 10-year requirement. Benefits are calculated based upon the plan under which the service was earned. For those, excuse me, just one second here. Sorry, little technical issue. The result for those members with some service in a regular plan and some service in a special plan is what we call a split age reduction, such that the regular plan service is reduced for early retirement prior to 60, 62, or 65, and the special plan service is reduced for early retirement only if retirement is prior to age 55. Members with all or a high percentage of their service under the 1998 special plan are more greatly advantaged by that plan. LD 1041 would expand the 1998 special plan to include certain Department of Health and Human Services employees employed on October 1, 2021 or hired thereafter. These employees have always been covered by the regular plan. The bill as drafted would allow for the inclusion of all service in a covered position as service in the 1998 special plan. Therefore, the split age reduction as previously described would not apply, and a reduction for early retirement would only apply for retirement before age 55. This bill will have a fiscal impact because the Constitution does not allow the creation of new or additional benefits unless immediately and fully funded. New benefits are created under LD 1041 because mental health workers would be able to retire earlier and therefore would receive benefits for more years than currently accounted for and funded for, creating a new unfunded actuarial liability. This bill would also increase the ongoing employer normal costs for the members who will be covered in a more favorable special plan. During the 129th legislature, the committee considered LD 1569, which included the same proposal as found in LD 1041. At that time, MaineFirst estimated the cost for the plan change to be approximately $4 million in increased UAL, which would require immediate funding, and an ongoing $1.3 million per year increase in normal costs. Those costs would need to be updated for LD 1041. Thank you for your consideration of the testimony, and I'd be happy to answer questions and will be available at your work session.
Thank you, Ms. Morin. Any questions from the committee? Representative Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Director Morin. Is there the 4 million? Because I know this bill went through a complicated journey. It got coupled with another group that got decoupled from, how many workers are we talking about in just ODES?
I don't have the number for just in ODES. The bill, last session's bill was bigger than ODES. And I believe there were 400 plus employees that we were looking at in that bill. So if you were to center just on ODES, we'd have to get the information for those people, and then we would go through that costing process again just for that population.
Okay, thank you. If we could try to do that for the work session, at least to get a number of folks and a rough idea, understanding that that's not, something you can turn around on a dime, but maybe Steve, either reaching out to HHS. I thought that we'd see somebody from the department today, and it realized too late that there wasn't anybody. So if we could reach out to HHS and try to get some demographics on these folks, that would be great.
So just for clarification, if I may, you're asking for the ODES only population costs?
For that group that does this specific work that we heard testified to today. Yeah, I think we tried to do it last year, and then there was another group added in, and then like I said, it went through quite a journey last year in terms of taking those 400 people and putting them in different groupings. So
right.
Specifically, I'm interested in those ODES folks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Thank you for responding to my requests as I learn very quickly how this all works. And I'm sure I'll have to come in for a tutorial someday soon on the retirement program.
We welcome that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Seeing no other people testifying on this bill, I will close the public hearing on LD 1041 at this time. Checking the time, don't see the need for a break unless there is some objection from the committee. And with that, I will open up the public hearing on LD 620, resolved to develop a plan for teachers to collect Social Security, sponsored by Representative John Tuttle of Sanford, presented today by Chairman Mike Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Tuttle has had some health issues today, so I will read his testimony. Senator Heckman, Representative Sylvester, and members of the Labor and Housing Committee, my name is John Tuttle, and I represent House District 18, part of the city of Sanford. I'm pleased to present LD 620, resolved to develop a plan for teachers to collect Social Security. Having chaired this committee in the past for 8 years, I wish I could have honored the legislative tradition of leaving a small gift for each of you, but maybe we can do that tomorrow when we're all together in person. This resolve takes another crack at a difficult issue that is very important to me and has been with us for a long time. But I put the resolve in because we need to do all we can for Maine's hardworking teachers. LD 620 directs the Maine Public Employees Retirement System to examine options and make recommendations for a plan to allow Maine teachers to contribute, accumulate credit, and collect benefits under the United States Social Security Act, in addition to collecting benefits under the Maine Public Employees Retirement System. The bill has a report back provision requiring MPERS to submit a report on its findings and recommendations, together with any proposed implementing legislation to this committee. The resolve also authorizes you to submit a bill to the legislature that implements that proposal. Thank you for the chance to testify. I would be happy to answer any questions from the committee. And that is signed John Tuttle, Representative John Tuttle. I would just say that for myself, that I have worked with Representative Tuttle on this bill. We're seeing there are 2 other bills coming to us that are similar in nature. And I think that there are definitely, as you will hear, some issues about going back and making folks whole who have been hurt by this situation. The folks who find themselves in that situation right now, and the folks who might come into this situation in the future. And so I know those are all things that I think that if Representative Tuttle were here, he would be pointing out to you. And so with that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chairman Sylvester. Representative Prescott has a question for you.
Well, thank you. You know, we've seen these bills before, and just so I'm clear, this is same like in kind. What it is if you worked in the private sector for years and built up your Social Security, then you went into the public sector, they basically offset. You can't collect both as much as you are. Okay, great. Just food for thought. And Chair, tell me if I'm out of bounds here, but.
Is it a question? Is it a question?
Oh, sure, I'll make it a question. Representative Sylvester, do you think we should change it from just teachers to state workers?
I appreciate the question, Representative Prescott. I think that it's an issue for both categories. It was a question I think that I asked I think there'll be folks coming forward to give some information. We'll have some opinions on it. In my opinion, it hurts everybody who is in the state pension if they worked in the private sector either before or after there's public service. And I look at it, I think because of costs, they looked at limiting it to education, because it's one of those bills that you basically have to mortgage a couple of counties to pay the bill if we went back and tried to make everybody whole.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none. There are 4 people signed up to testify on this bill. 3 in favor and 1 neither for nor against. Maine Education Association, Thomas Record, Maine School Management Association, and Maine PERS. Ms. Thompson, if you could let them all in, and I will welcome testimony from Mr. John Kosinski.
Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and other esteemed members of the Labor and Housing Committee. My name is John Kaczynski, and I'm here on behalf of the Maine Education Association to testify in support of LD 620. The MEA represents 24,000 educators in our state, including over 5,000 retirees. Great news. Much of the research and analysis called for in LD 620 has already been done, as Representative Sylvester mentioned. In 2011, as part of the biennial state budget, the legislature and the governor approved a working group to develop a new pension system for new hires and/or not yet invested employees. The working group included MEPers and representatives from the MEA, Maine School Management, Maine State Employees Association, and the state's own Commissioner of Department and Financial Services, or DAFS. I've submitted written testimony. I'll just hit a few points. One of the parameters put in place by that budget in 2011 was to move new hires into Social Security, but also cap the state's contribution at 2%. We spent a lot of time and there's been a lot of work done with MEPers on this subject. And that's why we asked Senator Maxman to consider sponsoring a bill, which she did, LD 1105, to continue to get the band back together and to have this group continue to work on new pension plan options. You've heard a little bit, I think, from Representative Prescott about GPO-WEP. Happy to talk about those. We think they are patently unfair, and Representative Prescott is correct. If you move in between Social Security and MEPers, those are your earnings on Social Security are offset when you retire. They are extremely damaging to the retirees, and we are seeking a solution. We have looked for a solution to this issue federally, which is where it needs to be resolved, for decades, and we frankly have come up short. I just need to point out that currently the school districts, the employers, are paying roughly about 4% the normal cost for the pension. And if we move into a Social Security system, part of the struggle here is that the employer share increases to 6.2%. Currently, teachers pay 7.65 towards retirement. If they were in Social Security, they would pay 6.2%. So that really just underscores the real good deal that MainePERS is for the state in terms of keeping for employers, in terms of keeping costs down. But despite all the challenges ahead, we look forward to trying to figure out a new pension system for new hires. We think it's important, particularly, I'm going to talk later about some of the, in another bill, testify on changes that were made to the pension system in 2011. The expectation for a new teacher in our state is that they work until they're 65 in order to avoid retirement penalties. There's lots to work. Happy to talk more, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kaczynski. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Next is Thomas Record.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, members of the committee. My name is Thomas Record. I'm a resident of Farmingdale. I'm the current chair of the Legislative Committee of the Maine Association of Retirees, which I'll refer to as MAR today, and I speak today on its behalf. MAR is a member-driven organization whose approximately 14,000 members are retirees covered by one of the various plans administered by MainePERS. The overarching mission of MAR is to protect the retirement fund and to advocate for the right of Maine's public service retirees to ensure a financially secure, healthy, and enriched life. MAR would first like to thank Representative Tuttle for introducing LD 620, which we understand is intended to address a topic which for many years has been one of the most common concerns that's raised by our membership when we meet with them. And it affects, as was pointed out a few minutes ago, both teachers retired from school districts participating in the retirement system, as well as other state public service retirees. That concern involves something called the Windfall Elimination Provision, or WEP. This provision is a mid-1980s amendment to the Social Security Act, which substantially reduces Social Security monthly benefits with respect to persons who work for employers such as many school districts, as well as the state, for which contributions to the Social Security were not made by the employers and employees. Unfortunately, as John Kaczynski just noted, the WEP is a provision of federal, not state law. Absent a change in federal law, MAR does not believe that there are alternatives available here in Maine that allow teachers or other public service retirees to avoid the WEP, except for a long-term and costly approach, referred to a few minutes ago as perhaps as mortgaging several counties. I am closing with today's testimony, a publication of the Social Security Administration, which sets out the details of how the WEP operates, and I hope you'll have an opportunity to take a look at it. As you will see in this enclosure, the WEP can be avoided on a sliding scale basis only by those otherwise affected by it who have at least 20 years of substantial earnings subject to Social Security contributions. Full avoidance of the WEP kicks in only for those with 30 or more years of substantial earnings subject to Social Security. Although MAR does not have supporting statistical information, it is our belief that the vast majority of teachers and state employees would fall far short of meeting the substantial earnings test for the requisite number of years. We fear if the bill contemplates commencing Social Security contributions on behalf of teachers, that the associated costs would be such that few schools or teachers would be interested, and in any case, it would be many years before most would be able to meet the substantial earnings test. MAR would note that HR 82, the Social Security Fairness Act of 2021, has been introduced into the current Congress. Among other things, this bill proposes—
Mr. Record, unfortunately, I'm well over, a little bit over your time here, so I was trying to see if we could wrap you up, but if you could finish your thoughts, and then I'm sure we'll have some questions for you.
Thank you. I'll do that. Among other things, this bill proposes repeal the fall elimination provision. And one thing you might want to consider is a legislative resolve to write Congress to support HR 82. Thank you. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions either today or at work session.
Thank you, Mr. Record. Are there any questions from the committee? Chairman Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Record. I wonder if you could just expound a little bit more on where you were going with LD, I believe it was, or 182. You said you were about to talk about other bills.
No, I actually was going to reference HR 82, which is it's a federal bill that's currently pending. It's been referred to the House Ways and Means Committee. It has a number of provisions, but among them, it would repeal the windfall elimination provision. It also addresses the something called the government pension offset, which I think you're going to hear about in the next LD that you hear about today. Perhaps one thing that could be done, frankly, without a fiscal note, is a expression of legislative support to Congress for that proposal.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Record? Seeing none. Next
Thank
up.
you.
You're welcome. Good to see you, sir. Victoria Wallach. Welcome.
Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and members of the Labor and Housing Committee. I am Victoria Wallach, Communications and Government Relations Director for Maine School Management, testifying on behalf of the Maine School Boards Association and Maine School Superintendents Association in support of LD 620. Our association support this bill because the concept, as you've heard, has been long discussed, but no definitive action has been taken to make this possible. The last study we recall was done in 2018, and our associations was part of a group that that developed retirement options. As referenced by Mr. Kaczynski, we were there with the MEA on this, and we stay with them on this. The options explored, including allowing employees to participate in Social Security, to have a choice of 3 supplemental plans because Social Security is not enough. The choices included a hybrid defined benefit, defined contribution option, a defined benefit option, and a defined contribution option. The report also recommended that new employees hired by the state would be would be automatically enrolled in a defined benefit plan that meets the Internal Revenue Service's safe harbor requirements. I put a link to the report that I referenced in your testimony if you have it electronically, and we believe this is a good report and a good starting point. And we also echo the desire to have everyone contact Congress, because that's where it will ultimately have to happen. So I thank you, and we'll take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Wallach. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Please have testimony in favor. We will now move to testimony neither for nor against. Sandy Matheson from Maine Purse. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Good morning, Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Sandy Matheson, and I am the Executive Director for the Maine Public Employees Retirement System. Thank you and Representative Tuttle for the opportunity to talk about teachers participating in Social Security. We know very well this is an important topic from the number of inquiries each year about the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. We also understand the impact these have on plan members. Maine PERS has led 3 pension redesign efforts, 2 of which have included providing the opportunity for members and employers to participate in Social Security on a go-forward basis. We welcome the opportunity of building on these efforts using updated research to submit a report as specified in LD 620.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions? Seeing no questions from the committee and no one else signed up to testify, I will close the public hearing on LD 620. Unless someone objects, we will move forward to the next public hearing, and I will open it up on LD 703. LD 703 is an act to increase the amount to which a state employee or teacher retiree's cost of living adjustment is applied from $20,000 to the retiree's actual retirement benefit, presented by Representative Richard Pickett of Dixfield. Good morning, Representative. You are on mute, sir. Please unmute yourself.
Am I okay now?
Yep.
Okay. Welcome back, Senator.
Thank you.
Good morning, Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. I'm Representative Dick Pickett, and I represent House District 116, proudly serving the towns in the western mountains of Maine of Canton, Dixfield, Hartford, Mexico, and Peru. I'm here this morning to introduce LD 703, an act to increase the amount to which a state employee or teacher retiree's cost of living adjustment is applied from $20,000 to the retiree's actual retirement benefit. Cost of living adjustments to the retirement benefits being paid to retired state employees, teachers, or beneficiaries of either shall be determined as follows. Whenever there is a percentage increase in the consumer price index from July 1st to June 30th, the State Retirement Board shall automatically make an equal percentage increase in retirement benefits. Beginning in September, up to a maximum annual increase of 3% to the retiree's full retirement benefit. A change in the law took place effective July 1st, 2011, which applied the increase to that portion of the retirement benefit up to $20,000, which amount must be indexed in subsequent years by the same percentage adjustments. It's been almost 10 years that state retirees, teachers, or beneficiaries still are not receiving the cost of living adjustments to their full retirement benefit. LD 703 will simply provide that cost of living increases will apply to a retiree's entire retirement benefit instead of only to the $20,000, just like it did prior to July 1st, 2011. Thank you, and I would be glad to answer any questions if I can.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. We will now move to public testimony in favor of the bill. Adam Good, Jeff McCabe, John Krasinski, Melissa Evers, Victoria Wallach, and Bill Lovenstein have signed up. First up, Mr. Adam Good.
Good morning, Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, members of the Labor and Housing Committee. My name is Adam Good. I represent the Maine AFL-CIO. We represent 40,000 working people in the state of Maine. We work to improve lives and working conditions of our members and all working people. We testify in favor of LD 703. LD 703 helps address the struggle of public sector retirees. Currently, retired state employees, teachers, and beneficiaries only get a cost of living increase for the first $20,000 of their retirement benefit. LD 703 makes those cost of living increases apply to the entire benefit. This bill seeks to fix an action from the 125th Maine legislature, where there were significant pension cuts that included a freeze to the COLA for 3 years, an increased retirement age for those who had less than 5 years of service, and a cap on the cost of living adjustment for retiree pensions. Public sector workers and retirees have not been able to catch up with the cost of living since these actions were taken. This is best understood in the context of how pensions for retired state employees and teachers have fared in comparison to recipients of Social Security. From 2010 to 2018, retirement benefit levels of state employees and teachers fell behind that of their peers receiving Social Security by 2.1%. Passing LD 703 will help public sector retirees and their families keep up with property taxes, food, healthcare, and other basic necessities. We ask for your support, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Good. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Mr. McCabe.
Again, good morning, Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, members of the Committee on Labor and Housing. I am Jeff McCabe, Director of Politics and Legislation for the Maine Service Employees Association. Maine Service Employees Association of the labor union representing over 13,000 workers and retirees, mainly in the public sector statewide. I'm here in strong support of LD 703. This legislation provides that cost of living adjustment, or COLA, increases for retired state employees and teachers and their beneficiaries apply to a retiree's entire pension instead of only the first $20,000 of pension income. Many of you may know that in 2011, over the strenuous objections of members of our union, the prior administration in the 125th Maine legislature imposed enormous public employee pension cuts and retiree health care cuts to state workers and teachers. These cuts largely paid for hundreds of millions of dollars in tax breaks, mostly benefiting corporations and the wealthiest Mainers. The reason of these tax cuts in the retirement security of state workers and teachers was documented in March 1, 2011 in the Kennebec Journal news report titled Business Back Tax Cuts Adhering on State Budget, in which former Maine Department of Administrative and Financial Services Commissioner Sawin Millett was quoted in the hearing before the Appropriations Committee as follows. These pension savings in the budget allows for taxes to be cut by $203 million over the biennial. The 2011 pension cuts took multiple forms that were devastating in their consequences. They put Mainer retired workers and teachers behind in the cost of living. A full 10 years later, these retirees are still behind in the cost of living. So it is your decision making on LD 703. We respectfully ask you to keep in mind the full scope of these 2011 pension cuts. As you will see, the retiree COLA cut that LD 703 addresses is just one of the many cuts that weaken the retirement system for retired state workers. Prior to 2011, cuts to the retirement system for state workers were provided state paid health insurance after 25 years of service. In 2011, that changed. From that point forward, state workers to work the normal retirement, whether that's 60, 62, 65, to secure state paid retiree health insurance. For state workers hired after July 1st, 2011, for those not vested in the retirement system by date, their retirement age became 65 and their state contributions towards their retirement health insurance began at 65. For state workers hired on or after January 1st, 2011, their vesting for retiree health insurance would be as follows: 10 years up to 50%, 15 years up to 75%, and 20 years up to 100%. Retiree cost of living adjustments to the pension of retired workers and retired teachers were frozen for 3 years prior to the 2011 pension cuts.
Mr. McCabe, unfortunately, your 3 minutes is up. If you could wrap up your thoughts.
Absolutely. You should have my written testimony at this point in time, which will provide a historical aspect on these awful pension cuts, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you for the history, sir. Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. McCabe. There's been so much talk about Maine's retirement system over the last few weeks. I'm wondering, looking back then, can you tell me if any employees were given a choice of something else other than, to counteract some of the pension cuts? I'm just curious because I don't remember, to be honest with you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Representative. I believe at that time, and I think there was another bill brought forward this year in regards to some of the employees that chose an early retirement, and those folks were allowed to, I shouldn't even say an early retirement, folks were allowed to retire to get their full health insurance. And I will get you that information with the exact dates, but that would be another aspect. And I believe that is a bill that Representative Hanley has in and that the committee already heard to make those folks whole. So I should have also, at the start of my testimony, thanked the bill sponsor, who has continued to bring these important issues of equity in retirement for state workers and teachers forward this year, as well as last session as well. So thank you, Representative Pickett.
Any other questions for Mr. McCabe from the committee? Seeing none.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Kaczynski.
Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and other esteemed members of the Labor and Housing Committee, so good to be with you again. My name is John Kaczynski, here on behalf of the Maine Education Association to testify in support of LD 703. We represent 24,000 educators in the state, including 5,000 retired educators. Really appreciate Representative Pickett bringing this bill forward, and just want to add my voice, our voices, to the chorus of those supporting this. Hate to sound like a broken record, but the cuts to the pension system in 2011 were devastating for teachers in Ed Tech 2s and 3s. This bill is yet another attempt to try to undo some of that damage, and we appreciate that. I want to flag capping the cost of living to the first $20,000, as was done in 2011, was arbitrary and driven far more by the state's bottom line. And at the time, a deep commitment of our governor at the time and some legislators to cut taxes, especially for the wealthiest among us. Little or no attention was paid to the impact this cut, arbitrary cut, would have on current or future retirees and their ability to keep pace with inflation and retire with the dignity they deserve. No discussion took place to analyze how this change may impact our ability to recruit the best and brightest into the teaching profession. Little attention was paid to the needs of our current retirees who are already disadvantaged in retirement due to the GPO-WEP provisions of Social Security, which you just heard about, the meager state contribution to a retired teacher health care, and the already meager benefits of MEPERS. Instead, the focus was squarely on the need to reduce income taxes. But as I've testified previously in this committee, those changes were both structural and largely irreversible due to Maine's unique constitutional provisions. We knew that at the time of 2011, but those provisions, as this committee has discussed, required the state to pay upfront costs for unfunded liabilities. Just last year, the committee debated LD 1507, which was similar to this bill before you, but only raised the cost of living to the first $30,000 of earnings. And that bill had a fiscal note due to our constitutional amendment and due to the changes made in 2011 of $250 million to the general fund and $23 million to the highway fund. So I would expect this bill, sadly, will meet a similar fate, and we will see a similar fiscal note which will make this bill, as you all know, extremely challenging to pass. The MA supports this bill and hopes the committee will move it forward. We also hope we all learn a lesson from the cuts to the pensions of the teachers and other public employees in 2011 and the long-term impact such choices have for current and future retirees. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Kaczynski. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Melissa Evers. Please, there we go.
Yeah, hi,
Well,
sorry. Just getting, can you hear me? I'm just getting the technical difficulties ironed out. Greetings to the committee. My name is Melissa Evers. I'm a retiree from Oakland, Maine, testifying in support of LD 703. I was honored to serve the people in the state of Maine as a biologist with the Atlantic Salmon Commission and the Maine DEP. I enjoyed the work, but that said, while I worked, I noted that my salary was much lower than my peers in the private sector, the federal sector. And my husband and I spent most of our earnings on maintaining our Maine household, raising 2 kids who both graduated from Maine colleges. We also kept up a side gig for the last 25 years to supplement our income and make ends meet. The side gig was helpful, but not always easy as we both had full-time jobs. We're still doing the side gig in retirement, hoping to get away from that someday. But basically the lower salaries meant that I earned less money to contribute to my retirement savings. Basically, I was handicapped compared to my peers in other states, the federal government, and the private sector. I also assume this is true for people who didn't work in the professional technical arena. This bill would go a small way towards helping rectify what amounts to the legacy of that pay gap. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Evers, for your testimony. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you. Victoria Watt.
I believe Representative Bradstreet might have had one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Bradstreet.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Evers, for being here. I wonder, have you ever tabulated what the $20,000 cap that's done to your retirement, just in rough figures?
No, I haven't, because I haven't really been retired that long. So I don't have those figures. It would be a small addition, but any addition is welcome.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other questions? I don't see any hands raised. Thank you very much for being here today. Victoria Wallach is next.
Thank you. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester. I am Victoria Wallach, representing the Maine School Boards Association and Maine School Superintendents Association in strong support of 7.
We have a technical difficulty. Ms. Wallach, 1 second. So it looks as though she may have a power outage. We are going to move on to the next person testifying in favor of the bill, and we will take back Ms. Wallach when she returns. So, well,
I'm right here.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't know what happened. As mentioned, this bill will restore a benefit to our retirees who were essentially required to forego benefits to help balance the state budget in 2011. The change was made as part of the biennial budget, and we estimated it was worth about $280 million in savings to the state. As you know, that pension affects state workers and school district employees from teachers to administrators who are part of the Maine State Retirement Teacher Plan. Many of those people who are now contemplating retirement question whether they are prepared to do it under the diminished benefit. We anticipate there will be a substantial financial note on this proposal, But when this cost-cutting initiative was passed 10 years ago, it created a significant fiscal impact on our employees and the retirement plans. Thank you, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you. Mr. William Lobenstein or Lobenstein. Please unmute yourself, sir, if you can hear me. Please unmute your mic. There we go.
Good, I think I've got it all now. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and members of the committee, I thank you for the chance to speak to you today. My name is William Lobenstein, and I am the president of the Maine Association of Retirees, and I'm here to speak on behalf of that organization. We strongly support OD 703. Many of the remarks I wanted to make this morning have already been said by other people, so I'll not repeat them. Particularly the fact that in 2011, the change to a maximum limit of $20,000 on what a cost of living increase could apply was supposed to be a one-time affair to help with the budget. Now, the association I represent doesn't have any concern with having retirees contribute to a budgetary problem, but we think it's a little unreasonable to think that that's carried on for 10 years. But there are 3 points I want to make this morning that haven't been mentioned. The first is in 2011, the maximum increase of a cost of living was reduced from 4% to 3%. Now that's not in Representative Pickett's bill, but that's something you might want to consider to restore that 4%. The second thing is that the plan for participating districts also has a cost of living adjustment, but that again is at 4%, and the benefit is applied to the entire retirement benefit. We think it's a matter of equity that state employees and teachers also have their plan also have the maximum increase at 4%, and that be applied to the entire benefit. Now, Representative Bradstreet raised an interesting question about, is there any other way to look at help retirees who struggle with, maybe fixed incomes and other issues they confront today? You've already heard testimony about those receiving Social Security and windfall elimination provision. But another issue that pops up all the time is the health benefit plan for retirees, which is a Medicaid Advantage program. Under the Advantage program, retirees covered by the plan have to pay for Part B of Medicare. Currently, that is $148.50 a month. That's a huge cost to all retirees covered by the Advantage plan. Now, I know that's not before the committee, but a good way to address the financial issues of retirees and ensure their well-being and financial security would be to have the state pay for Part B rather than have the employee pay for it. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Lobenstein. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none. That concludes testimony in favor of LD 703. We will now hear from Kathy Moran from Maine PERS with testimony neither for nor against.
It's good afternoon now. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Kathy Moran. I'm the Manager of Actuarial and Legislative Affairs for Maine PERS. Maine PERS is neither for nor against LD 703. And again, we're here to provide you whatever information would be helpful for you. The state of Maine defined benefit plans are funded by employer and member contributions and by investment returns. Contributions cover the normal or annual cost of the plan, as well as payments of the unfunded actuarial liability, or UAL. The required level of contributions is determined on an actuarial basis every 2 years by comparing plan assets to liabilities. Prior to 2011, cost of living adjustments for retired state employees and teachers were based on the CPIU up to a maximum of 4%. In 2011, COLA was frozen for 3 years, during which non-cumulative ad hoc COLAs were paid. The maximum COLA was reduced from 4% to 3%, and the annual COLA base was limited to the first 20,000 of benefits indexed by future COLAs. These changes greatly reduced the required unfunded actuarial liability payment, which had increased significantly as a result of the 2008 recession. LD 703 proposes to eliminate the cap on the portion of the benefit on which the COLA is based from 20,000 and to instead pay the COLA on the actual benefit received by retirees. This bill will have 2 fiscal impacts. The first is that it would require immediate funding of the increased liabilities created by a higher COLA on benefits earned to date in compliance with the state constitution. The second is that it would increase ongoing employer normal costs. The increased normal costs cover the cost of increased COLAs to be paid on future benefits as they are earned. Although MainePers has not yet determined the fiscal impact of LD 703, we know from work on prior COLA-related bills that the cost to restore COLA to apply to the entire benefit would be substantial. Thank you for your consideration of this testimony, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, and we'll be available at your work session.
Thank you, Ms. Moran. Are there any questions? Seeing no questions from the committee, that will conclude the public testimony on LD 703. Is there anything anyone from the committee would like for work session that has not already been requested? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on LD 703. We have 2 more public hearings today, LD 956 and LD 711, followed by 3 language reviews on bills we've previously worked. We will take 1 more bill, and then we will take, we'll see how much of a break we'll take between that and the final bill. I want to check in with the bill sponsor because I know that he's very busy today in committee, and we need to take a break as well. But with that, I will open up the public hearing on LD 956, an act to amend the eligibility criteria for credible service in the Armed Forces of the United States under the state retirement system, sponsored by Senator Mark Lawrence of York. Senator Lawrence, I see you in the room. Perhaps there's some wind blowing down your way, as there is all over the state right now. It's howling, absolutely howling. Maybe we'll take a break sooner than I thought. I'll just give him another minute to see if there's just a problem with connectivity. Southern Maine, or wherever he may be in the world. I hear activity. Ta-da! Welcome, Senator. We're ready for you, sir.
Okay, thank you. I just have to turn up the volume so I can hear you, Senator. Sorry, I was in the middle of a meeting with a client, so I had to ask the client to sit outside so I can present this bill. But thank you, Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and honorable members of the Labor and Housing Committee. My name is Mark Lawrence. I'm a state senator from Southern York County, and yes, I am a previous member of this committee. And unfortunately, all I can send you today is virtual cookies. I won't be able to bring anything till such time as we get together. I'm sponsoring LD 956, an act to amend the eligibility criteria for credible service in armed services of the United States under the retirement system. This is a bill that the late Representative Ann Peoples sponsored during the 129th legislature. It was LD 467 at that time, but the bill did not pass due to the conclusion of the session due to COVID-19. This updated bill would reduce the fiscal note from the provisions of the previous version of the bill. This bill would allow veterans who served in Lebanon from August 21st, 1982 to February 26, 1984, and in Grenada from October 25th, 1983 to December 15th, 1983 to qualify for state retirement benefits during this period. With this acknowledgement of service, veterans who served during these operations could then purchase military service credit, ultimately increasing their retirement benefits with that purchase. Despite these operations having been considered peacetime war effort, as veteran Artie Ledoux, who is coming up after me, will attest, these service members still saw conflict and some perished in the line of duty. LD 956 would rectify decades-long loophole where veterans of this time period could not qualify for state retirement benefits they rightly deserved. It's been an honor to work with a passionate advocate for this bill, Artie Ledoux, and as well as Representative Sue Salisbury of Westbrook, and you will hear from them shortly, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on this legislation.
Thank you, Senator.
Except for questions from Representative Prescott.
How did you know?
He and I served together on the Insurance and Financial Services Committee, and I'm aware of the difficulty of his questions.
Well, thank you. Just so I can be clear, are we talking about they get out of service and then they go to work for the state, and this is going to be included in that time?
Correct. And this would allow them to essentially buy that time into the state service.
Right, in addition to what they're earning now.
Correct.
All right, thank you. Say you can let you off easy.
Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator, for being here. To the best of your knowledge, or maybe perhaps someone coming behind you could better answer this, are there any other periods of conflict which are not already included, or is it, to your knowledge, is it just these two?
I do not know if there are any that haven't been included. I do believe the legislature has in the past gone and included certain other time periods and corrected loopholes in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none. Thank you. Your client is probably waiting.
Thank you very much, Senator.
You're welcome. We will now take testimony in favor of the bill of Arthur Ledoux, Jeff McCabe, Sue Salisbury, followed by testimony neither for nor against from Kathy Morin. Ms. Thompson, if you could let them all in. And I see one of our testifiers. I'm waiting to see Arthur Ledoux, who is next.
Correct me if I'm mistaken, but is Sue Salisbury a co-sponsor?
Oh, you are correct. Thank you
Okay.
very much for that correction. Representative Salisbury, you are the priority. Please present your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I'm honored to be a priority in this bill. Good afternoon, Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Sue Salisbury, and I represent House District 35, which, as mentioned, was the seat previously held by Ann Peoples. And I'm proud today to be continuing the work that she was doing on this bill. I am here today to speak in favor of LD 956, which is an act to amend the eligibility criteria for creditable service in the armed forces of the United States under the state retirement system. Currently, under Maine law, eligible Maine PERS members can purchase up to 4 additional years of their eligible military service towards their total retirement time. There are 2 ways that the cost of purchasing this time is calculated. The first requires the member to pay the full actuarial cost associated with the additional service credit. The second is the member is only required to pay the member contributions related to the time being purchased. the balance of the cost or the difference between the cost the member pays and the actuarial cost is added to the liabilities of the plan and is considered a subsidized rate. In order to qualify for this subsidized rate, military time for members of the United States Armed Forces has to fall within a prescriptive, federally recognized period of conflict. As stated in current law, notably listed are World War I and II, the Korean conflict, the Vietnam War, the Persian Gulf War. Unfathomably left out are the conflicts that occurred in Lebanon and Grenada. On August 21st, 1982, 800 Marines were sent to serve in the multinational force to help members of the Palestine Liberation Force escape Beirut. On September 29th, 1982, 1,200 Marines joined the same multinational force to help secure sovereignty to the Lebanese government. On October 29th, 1983, following a coup d'etat and alignment with the Soviet Union and Cuba, the US invaded the nation island of Grenada. These events were an important part of US history and are currently listed as periods of conflict per the Congressional Research Service Report for members of committees of the Congress dated June 5th, 2020. Maine statute related to purchasing retirement time has left out these historical events as egregious. LD 956 adds these two periods of conflicts and allows those who served during these times to be eligible for the subsidized rate when purchasing their military time toward their well-deserved retirement. On February 1st, 2021, Maine PERS issued the military subsidy report that's linked in my testimony, which indicates that there have been 11 members who are eligible for the subsidized service credit since 2009, only 11. The total amount appropriated was $816,497. The report also states that some of those members did not complete the purchase or were found eligible to complete the purchase without the subsidy. Since 2016, there have only been a total of 6 requests for this service credit. The total cost of the subsidy was $328,983.
Uh-oh. It looks like we have lost Representative Salisbury's. There's a frozen. We'll wait a second or two to see if it comes back. Zoom is always beautiful, and period, but certainly in the wind. Is Mr. Ledoux ready to testify just in case? Yes, I see. So just give me 1 second. We'll see if Representative Salisbury comes back shortly. So in order to keep moving, we will obviously let Representative Salisbury finish her testimony when she returns. In the meantime, I'm calling forward Mr. Arthur Ledoux to testify in favor of LD 956. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good morning. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Artie Ledoux, and I'm here today to speak in support of LD 956. For the past 20 years, I have worked for the City of Westbrook. I currently serve as the Operations Manager for the Public Services Department, as well as the city's Veteran Service Officer, and I am an active participant in the Maine Public Employees Retirement System. I enlisted in the Marine Corps in July of 1980 and served until I was honorably discharged in June of 1989. While in the Marine Corps, I, along with my fellow Marines, trained every day for war, and I deployed many times, both at sea and on land, spending years away from my family. My job in the Marine Corps was a crew chief on Huey helicopters. My duties and responsibilities consisted of being a plane captain, mechanic, door gunner, conducting insertions, close air support, and search and rescue operations. As you know, every veteran at one time signed on the dotted line and was willing to accept the unknown. Every one of us. I did it twice. The current statute written discriminates between the service of veterans based solely on when a person was born and when they were old enough to serve, not whether they served in combat or not. The statute recognizes that not all veterans serve in combat in every situation. Veterans do not get the choice of what situations, conflicts, and wars the United States gets involved in. When veterans sign on the dotted line, the option to go to war is no longer a choice, as was the case for those of us who served during Beirut and Grenada. LD 956 corrects this and recognizes the sacrifice of those who served during this peacetime period. This period needs to be recognized as wartime service. Just ask the family of those peacetime American warriors who were inserted into the Lebanese Civil War and lost their lives peacekeeping, all 241 of them. In Grenada, the peacetime warriors sent into theater included 7,300 troops, 4 tanks, 1 aircraft carrier, 3 destroyers, 2 frigates, 1 ammunition ship, and 27 F-14 Tomcats. Again, these American peacetime warriors suffered 19 casualties, 116 wounded, 36 injured, and 9 US helicopters destroyed. Were there not enough casualties, not enough medals or Purple Hearts awarded, not as much sacrifice and bravery? I submit to you that it was real in Beirut and Grenada, especially for the families of the fallen, who are reminded every time they visit their loved one's grave in Arlington National Cemetery. LD 956 offers an opportunity for this committee and the state of Maine to lead the way and recognize the service and sacrifice of veterans who served during Beirut and Grenada campaigns, currently categorized as peacetime. So I ask each of you for your support of LD 956 and to add these 2 military conflicts, 16 months, which my math may be off and I apologize for, to the statute and recognize the service of those who served bravely and honorably during that period. I thank you for your time and allowing me to testify in support of LD 956. And I am ready to take some of your questions if you have any. And I also have another letter to put into the record from the American Legion Department of Maine that they were kind enough to send over in support.
Thank you, Mr. Ledoux, for your testimony. Thank you also very much for your service. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, again, thank you for being here today, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I see that Representative Salisbury has returned. We will allow you now, Representative, to finish your testimony. I can't tell you what we last heard, so you pick up wherever you left off or start all over. It's up to you completely.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. Apparently the wind has taken over at Westbrook. I'm so sorry for that delay. And I appreciate the opportunity to finish. This bill has a lot of importance to me, and I definitely would like to finish if you don't mind. So basically, I was saying that LD 956 adds these 2 periods of conflict and allows those who served during these times to be eligible for the subsidized rate when purchasing their military time toward their well-deserved retirement. On February 1st, 2021, Maine PERS issued a military subsidy report, which indicated that there had been 11 members who were eligible for the subsidized service credit since 2009. The total amount appropriated was $816,497. The report also states that some of those members did not complete the purchase or were found eligible to complete the purchase without the subsidy. Since 2016, there have only been a total of 6 requests for this service credit. The total cost of this subsidy was $328,000. There was a balance in the account of $30,000, which left a remaining subsidy cost of only $298,442.21. It's time for Maine law to correct the error in not recognizing these times of conflict and allowing these eligible service members this small benefit in recognition of their service. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. I'll be happy to answer any questions. And I think someone's here from Maine PERS that can probably answer more specifics as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative, for your testimony and for your detail. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Testifying in favor, Jeff McCabe.
Good afternoon, Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, members of the Committee on Labor and Housing. I am Jeff McCabe, the Director of Politics and Legislation for Maine Service Employees Association. We are here today in strong support of LD 956. We appreciate the sponsor, co-sponsor, and Mr. Ledoux for championing this issue. I will say that without going into great detail, the folks before me have sort of explained the issue in great detail. We view this as a modernization of language much needed to recognize folks' service. We also, think this may be an issue for future improvement within defining military service and those who have served. This is not the first time that this issue has come forward, and we wonder if there's general language that could be used to recognize individual service as it pertains to this purchase of years of service through the Maine PERS system. We also view this as an ongoing recruitment and retention issue within state government. And we see a number of folks across many, many units who take advantage of this opportunity in recognition of their service. And I really think that Mr. Ledoux, in regards to summarizing it and saying accepting of the unknown, is something that I think of in this situation and all situations when folks sign up for military service. Individuals do not know sort of the scale, the recognition, the length of a conflict that may occur during their service. And I think the state should probably recognize that in some broader language for years of service associated with military service. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCabe. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, that concludes testimony in favor of LD 956. And now we'll hear testimony neither for nor against from Kathy Moore. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you again. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and members of the committee. My name is Kathy Morin. I'm the Manager of Actuarial and Legislative Affairs for Maine PERS. Maine PERS is neither for nor against LD 956. Maine PERS members can receive limited credit for time served in the military before they became members. For most members, the inclusion of military service credit results in the ability to retire earlier and/or with an increased retirement benefit. There are requirements that have to be met to get the service, including costs that have to be paid by the member. Under current law, the amount that must be paid by the member depends on whether their military service was during a federally recognized period of conflict. Members who served during one of those periods, regardless of whether they participated in the conflict, pay a relatively low amount and have the remainder subsidized by the state for members of the state teacher plan or by the participating local district consolidated plan for members of that plan. With one exception, members whose military service was not during a federally recognized period of conflict must pay the full actuarial cost of the additional service credit. The exception exists only in the state teacher plan. Members in that plan who did not serve during a federally recognized period of conflict still can purchase subsidized military service credit if they received a type of medal for their military service that indicates participation in a conflict and the legislature has appropriated funds to cover the cost of the subsidy. Maine PERS submits an annual report to the legislature of members who have self-reported who fall into this category. This exception does not exist in the PLD consolidated plan, which is not funded by the state. Federally recognized period of conflict is defined in statute to include the dates of several military conflicts over the past century. This term essentially includes everything except a 15-year period between May 7, 1975 and August 8, 1990. LD 956 would add two conflicts that occurred during this 15-year period to the definition of federally recognized period of conflict, resulting in the addition of approximately 20 months in the definition. LD 956 would have a fiscal impact because it would increase the number of members eligible for a subsidized purchase. Additionally, members who served during the newly added periods and already purchased military service at the full actuarial rate would be entitled to a refund equal to the amount of the subsidy they would have received had those periods been included when they made the purchase. The cost of the new subsidies and refunds for the state teacher plan would have to be funded immediately because the state constitution prohibits the creation of unfunded liabilities for that plan. The bill would also impose a fiscal impact on the PLD consolidated plan. The state does not fund that plan, so the cost of the additional subsidies and refunds ultimately would have to be paid by the PLDs and their employees who were members. It's difficult to accurately estimate the additional cost to the state and the PLD consolidated plan because we generally do not know which of our members served during the new periods that would be added by LD 956. However, we will work with the Office of Fiscal and Program Review to provide estimates based on the information available to us. I believe somebody who testified prior referenced a bill that was heard last session, and we were able to put together some costs for that bill, and we would try to do so again. This bill is a little bit different than LD 467 from last year. Thank you for your consideration of the testimony, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, and it will be available at your work session.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none from the committee, my question is, just in case people who are listening are unfamiliar with the acronym, what is PLD?
Participate in local district. Those are our local governments, cities, towns, water districts, that sort of thing, that participate in a different plan.
Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
And seeing no other questions from the committee, I will close. Do we have everything we need for the work session first from the committee? Great. I will close the public hearing on LD 956. At this time, the committee is going to take a break. It is 12:27. When we return at 1:00 p.m., we will hear our final bill for public hearing and do some language reviews. Whichever comes first at that time will be flexible. So we will be at ease until 1 p.m. Welcome back, everyone. It is just now exactly 1:00 p.m., at least according to my computer. And I am looking to see if I see Senator Baldacci anywhere around. Mr. Langland, are you here? Are you back?
Yep.
I was wondering, while we wait for Senator Baldacci, if we would have time to do those language reviews.
Sure.
If they're brief enough, or even. Thank you. So why don't we do that while we wait for Senator Baldacci to show up?
Okay, sure. I'm going to share my screen with you. So the first one for review is LD 29, which was the apprenticeship program bill. So the majority was ought to pass as amended. The amendment was striking out genetic information or disability, or because the person is 40 years of age or older, and instead inserting gender identity, genetic information, disability, or age. So again, this was the majority report. The minority report was just straight ought to pass. There is no fiscal note required on this bill or the minority report. The next one is LD 137, which was an act regarding absence from work for emergency response by Representative Grahowski. So this was unanimous, ought to pass as amended. So in addition to the bill as it was written, the sponsor also found a technical error in the bill. And so what this amendment does is incorporates that technical error. So it reads employee status as a firefighter or emergency medical services person, whereas before it just read firefighter status. And there is no fiscal note required for this amendment either. The final one that I have for you today is LD 211, which is an act to support emergency shelter access for persons experiencing homelessness by Representative Cloutier. This was majority ought to pass as amended and minority ought not to pass. So this amendment amends the bill to require a report from the Maine State Housing Authority on funds that were dispersed from the shelter operating subsidy program. So Maine State Housing has to provide a report by March 1st of next year to this committee, and the committee can report out a bill regarding that report. And this amendment also specifies that the use of funds is not just for low barrier emergency shelters, as was initially proposed in the bill. It expands it for all support shelter operations, and it takes away the requirement that, which was in the original bill, that Maine State Housing has to allocate funds using a funding formula methodology separate from what was included in its rules. So this amendment actually allows them to use what's already in their rulemaking. And this fiscal note, it's basically a funding bill, so it's $3 million annually. And the minority report, as I said, was ought not to pass. So if the committee thinks that these look good and there are no other issues, I can have Alyssa, I can send these back to Ross and I can have Alyssa start the process of reporting them out eventually, potentially today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Langland. Are there any questions for Mr. Langland from the committee? And so are we satisfied that these language reviews represent the intent of all of the reports that are in front of us? If you have an objection to anything you saw, hearing no objection, Mr. Langland, we are good to report these bills out or begin that process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And it looks like Senator Baldacci will be here shortly to present our final bill for public hearing today. So we'll just be at ease until he arrives. Thank you all for your patience. We'll be right back.
save the growers some money, but
I'm promoting Senator Baldacci now.
Hi, you guys. Nice to see you.
One here, sir. I just want to turn off my other computer and call everyone back to attention.
I also want to thank there's a number of police officers I think that are on the attendee list too that have been waiting patiently. I thank them as well.
We know that you have had a very busy day today. So it looks like we're all here. I will open the public hearing on LD 711 and act to allow certain police officers to return to participation in the Maine Public Employees Retirement System sponsored by Senator Joseph Baldacci of Penobscot.
Thank you, Senator Hickman. And thank you, Representative Sylvester and distinguished members of the Labor and Housing Committee. I appreciate your time. The purpose of this bill is to allow certain police officers, as it says, to be able to re-enter the Maine State Retirement System. Back in 2000, Bangor and a number of other communities got completely out of the Maine State Retirement System, and certain employees had a short window to apply or not apply, and then they were forever barred. With Senator Bailey is also introducing a similar bill, and I'm definitely open. She wants to obviously offer this to all public employees, which I'm fine with. I know the firefighters also want to be included, and that's great. I just want to let. So initially, the Bangor PD had asked me to submit this, and I did because having served on the city council and been a citizen of Bangor, we have a great PD. They serve us well. They are great community officers, and we have a lot of respect for their work. But also a number of them have worked 2 or 3 decades, and I want to make sure they get a fair shake out of the retirement system. So they actually have to buy in to the system. So nobody's giving them anything. But it's just legislation just allows them the option to buy in to the Maine State Retirement System. So actually the state will garner funds from this. But I think it's a common sense piece of legislation. I think it will help out many public employees. And I think it's important to give them a fair shake, and where they're buying into it, I think it's a reasonable option. And I very much appreciate everyone's time and attention.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none.
Okay.
Thank you for presenting the bill.
I believe Representative Bradstreet
Chair, I
had a
did have
question.
one.
Don't go anywhere.
I was late getting to my mute button. Okay, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Senator Baldacci. Good to see you again this
Good
morning.
to see you again. Yes.
Just wondering, what kind of system does the Bangor PD have now? Is it a separate system completely?
It's the
There must be some
ICM.
motivation for.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's the ICMA. So it's an individual retirement system. So I think that they can still maintain whatever their savings in that, but I think this bill would just allow them the option to buy into the state retirement as well, which I think is going to be a significant cost. They recognize that before they had asked me to introduce the bill. So, but yeah, Bangor has an ICMA, and for obvious reasons, Bangor back then, having served on the council back then, wanted to limit our liability with the Maine State Retirement System. But we need to make sure that employees get a fair shake out of it and can have the option to do this. And I think it makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bradstreet. It's good to see you again.
Any other questions for Senator Baldacci from the committee?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's always a pleasure.
Always. Thank you. We will now move to public testimony. Thank you for patiently waiting. In favor of LD 711, we have John Miller, Justin Angelo, Michael from Cumberland, Ronnie Green, Sheriff Troy Morton, and Wade Betters signed up to testify in favor of the bill. And then we will move to testimony neither for nor against by Michael Colleran from Maine Purse. So Ms. Thompson, if you could let the first three into the room, or the first four. You've been doing a great job with that. We haven't had to pause too many times between testifiers, and that's a beautiful thing. So first up to testify in favor is John Miller from the Bangor Fire Department.
Good afternoon, Senator Hickman and the honorable members of this committee. Sorry, here we are. Good afternoon, Senator Hickman and the honorable members of this committee. My name is John Miller, and I'm of Winterport, and I'm currently a captain with the Bangor Fire Department. I've served the citizens of Bangor for just over 25 years, and I'm here in support of LD 711 and to provide a face and a voice to those that would benefit from the passage of LD 711. Back when I started in 1996, we had Maine State Retirement. As the years passed, about 5 years passed, and we were given the option of leaving and going into the ICMA 401 plan. At that time, I also became aware that I had a pretty serious health issue with my heart and had to start making some plans that I may not be able to continue my career as a firefighter. So at that time, I had opted out of Maine State and gone into the ICMA with the contingency plan of being able to go back to school and learn how to make a living outside of emergency services. Subsequently, because of the advancements in medicine, my surgeon was able to correct the problem out of state and sign me off to return to full duty without any kind of limitations. And unfortunately, though, I was out of the Maine State system and looking forward to a nice long career. Fortunately, a nice long career with Bangor Fire Department. It's a calling, I think, for all of us that are in the fire service, EMS and law enforcement. And you really don't think early on in your career about retirement and whatnot. We tend to just stay where we are and keep serving the citizens as best we can. But now I'm reaching towards the end of my career, and the fire department has returned back to Maine State, and subsequently now I am left out and without an option to return to Maine State retirement. I just want to pay my fair share and be able to get back in and kind of correct something that now I've come to regret over quite a long period of time. And I'm so grateful for Senator Baldacci for introducing this and hopefully incorporating the fire service into it as well as law enforcement. And I just wanted to thank, again, the Senator for sponsoring this bill, and thank you all for listening. And if you have any questions, I welcome them.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. If I didn't get your title correctly, I'm sorry. I missed it. I missed your rank.
That's okay. I'm captain now.
Captain, thank you. And we thank you for your service to our communities to help keep us safe. Are there any questions for Captain Miller from the committee? Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Captain Miller. Thank you for your many years of service. I just happen to live north of you guys just a little bit. Have you seen the figure on what it would cost you to buy back in?
I haven't seen the exact figure. That's something that I understand that if I was allowed to get back into or was looking into it, Maine PERS would be able to come up with that number. My peers have all been able to re-enter, and they've gotten exact quotes to get back in. I believe I have enough money to be able to buy back all my years and then continue on with my service beyond that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Cuddy.
Representative Drinkwater actually asked the question that I was going to ask, so we're all good. So instead, I will just say hello to my friend John Miller. It's nice to see you, man.
Representative Cuddy, good to see you.
Any other questions for Captain Miller from the committee? Representative Drinkwater, okay. Seeing none, again, thank you for being here today and thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
It looks like Justin Angelo is not in the room, and so we will move to Michael from Cumberland's. I don't want to butcher your last name, and so I'd rather not say it at all until you tell me how it's pronounced.
Thank you, Senator Hickman. It's Michael Eads.
Thank you. You testify.
I want to thank you, Senator, and also Chairman Sylvester for an opportunity to testify on LD 711. This bill is very important. I represent, I'm the executive director of the Fraternal Order of Police here in Maine. We represent about 1,000 police officers, almost all the county sheriff's departments, and another 30 some odd local police departments all the way from York County to Aroostook County. This bill is very important because a number of our members have gotten out of Maine State retirement for a variety of reasons, and then wanted to get back in and can't. The one thing about this bill is, as far as we know, there is no unfunded liability cost. There's no cost to the taxpayers, or all the costs are going to be borne by the employees. And I won't keep you, but I want to give you a short idea of how this affects a real case. We have a Somerset County deputy. He started dispatching in his early 20s. He was there a couple of years, but the retirement at that time was age 65. So he had to work about 43 years before he could collect. So he opted out of the retirement. He then quit service as a dispatcher, went in the private sector, came back 2 years later, is now working as a road deputy in Somerset County. Meanwhile, the retirement for Somerset County changed to 25 years straight. That deputy is not allowed to get back into the system. And because he opted out while he was a dispatcher, since he's working for the same agency, he's not allowed back in. We have about 125 to 175 members of our 1,000-person unit that this would affect. And it's deputies from all over Knox County, Franklin County, Penobscot County, you name it. Officers are all over the state. Portland PD, for instance, the supervisors that I represent, there's 33 of them, and about 10 of them are out of the system but want to get back in. So that just give you an idea of how this bill is far-reaching, and we would certainly appreciate your support. I'll take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Eads, for your testimony and being here today and for your patience. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none.
Thank you, Senator.
Next, we have Ronnie Green.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and members of the Labor and Housing Committee. My name is Ronnie Green, and I reside in the town of Plymouth. I'm currently a district vice president with the Professional Firefighters of Maine, representing well over 1,000 full-time career firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, inspectors, dispatchers, and mechanics across the great state of Maine who belong to the International Association of Firefighters. I'm here today to speak in support of LD 711. I would like to thank Senator Baldacci for sponsoring this bill. We've had a couple of conversations since the bill was submitted, and I think we agree it should include municipal firefighters as well. Back in the late 1990s, there was a push by some municipalities to get away from the Maine state retirement system and move towards defined contribution style retirement plans such as the ICMA. I was working as a firefighter with the city of Bangor during that time. The markets were good and there was a lot of money to be had in those defined contribution plans. When we are young firefighters and police officers, we think we have the entire world ahead of us and we will never want to leave our chosen professions. But in time, we realize our bodies are wearing out, our minds are taking a beating from what we've seen and experienced. Mostly we realize we can't keep up the younger guys and gals, and this is a young person's profession. I witnessed several young firefighters and police officers make the decision against the advice of the older, wiser generation to leave Maine State Retirement System and invest their money into the ICMA. Not long after that, the 2008 recession hit us and people lost a lot of money. A few years after that, those now older guys realized that not only were they getting older, but that the guys they had come onto the job with were starting to make retirement plans and they weren't even close to becoming eligible to retire. I think we all make decisions we regret from time to time, and I really believe in second chances. With that being said, I think it would be the right thing to do to allow these people a second chance. But I also feel it is only fair to the retirement system and all of its current members that these people buy back all of their time and pay into the system what it will take to make up for them not contributing all along. Thank you for your time, and I'll try to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Are there any questions from the committee? Representative Blatch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here again. I know maybe it's a little bit premature to ask this, but do you have any idea how many members your organization would be eligible for this?
That's a great question, Representative. Now, actually, I was on the phone with Captain Miller earlier today, and we was discussing that before the hearing. And I know at the time when this took place back in the 90s that there was 10 firefighters in Bangor that elected to get out of back then it was called Maine State Retirement System and enter the ICMA. And I think at this time, I think there's only one firefighter left in Bangor, and that is Captain Miller. But I do know there's a few police officers. As far as around the state, other than that, I can't speak to that.
Another question, Mr. Chair. Thank you. To the best of your knowledge, will this not cost the municipalities any more than what they're paying now?
That is my understanding, Representative. And to go back to an earlier question that you asked of Senator Baldacci. I actually made a note of that. Maybe I could answer it later on. You had the question, I think your question was about what other retirement system, what other retirement plans did those employees have or were offered at that time? The employee, and I can speak for the city of Bangor especially, but prior to 2000, everybody was offered the Maine State Retirement System, and most everybody get into it. After 2000, they only had the option to get into the ICMA. Back in 2018, we negotiated contracts in the city and re-offered the Maine State or MPERS plan to all employees in the city. Most of the employees that were hired after 2000 were able to take their money out of the ICMA and buy back all of their time with MPERS. Most of them all had enough money in there to do that. So there was no cost to the city at that time to do that, is my understanding, unless somebody will tell you something different. But they were all allowed to do that, and they did that. The few that had made the option to get out of Maine State retirement at the time were not allowed to get back in. So they were left kind of standing alone at the end of the day. I hope that answered your question.
Certainly does. We need for the work session, we can have some more definitive information on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee for Mr. Green? Seeing none, we will see you at the work session, sir, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Next is Sheriff Troy Morton, followed by Wayne Betters, followed by Paul Gaspar.
Senator, for some reason, they locked me out of turning on my video here.
Let's see. I think you should be able to try again.
There we go. Just like that. Thank you, Senator. As much as I enjoy my friends at criminal justice and judiciary, it's so nice to be before a different committee once in a while. So thank you very much. Senator Representative Sylvester and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Troy Morton. I'm the Sheriff of Penobscot County and President of the Maine Sheriff's Association. Maine sheriffs support this bill and act to allow certain police officers to return to participation in Maine Public Employees Retirement System. Maine sheriff's offices, like many of our law enforcement partners, are facing challenges to fill and retain qualified employees within our agencies. As state, county, and municipal law enforcement agencies struggle with this shared shortfall, Maine remains the safest state in the country, as it has been recognized as such in U.S. News for the past several years. As a new graduate from the Maine Criminal Justice Academy, it's hard to predict where you will end up by retirement. Changing agencies or facing fiscal hardships may cause a young officer to opt out of Maine PERS. It should not prohibit that same officer from rejoining at a later date. Additional examples of dropping out of Maine PERS includes misinformation or misunderstanding from human resources, changing in collective bargaining agreements, family or medical hardships, or a career change opportunities from corrections to patrol. Maine law enforcement officers place themselves in a position to protect and serve you and your families every single day of their careers. LD 711 provides these same men and women their rightful opportunity to provide for themselves and their families once they reach the end of their service to Maine citizen. We urge you ought to pass LD 711. I thank you for your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and I do have a couple examples if you are interested.
Thank you, Sheriff. Questions? Representative Drinkwater.
Sheriff Morton, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, sir.
Do you have any numbers for us, such as how many do you know of your officers would like to buy back in?
So with the sheriff's office alone, I know that there are currently 8 here. I've heard and listened to the entire testimony today. That's something we could certainly poll and survey the sheriff's associations or the counties throughout Maine to get those numbers for your work session. But there are 8 here at my office.
And so as president of the association, you probably could come up with a number statewide that would like to buy back in?
I certainly think we could get you a rough number. I'm sure of it.
Sure, I understand it's rough. Thank you and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Representative.
Chairman Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sheriff Morton, I was wondering if you had any examples that you wanted to share with us.
Thank you, Representative. I appreciate you asking. I do have two that personally affected our agent here, and they left me shaking my head. We had young officers come into the sheriff's office many years ago, corrections officers, and leave the department to go work for another agency. At the time, they're young officers. The last thing they're thinking about was retirement. Right? They're thinking about that extra $30 in their check, and they probably didn't even think about retirement. And so a lot of officers opted out at that time. In this case, we had two officers, same situation as correctional officers, leave our department, go work for a municipality, join Maine PERS with that agency, later came back home, which we're so proud of, that they came back to us to work as patrolmen later in their careers. But because they opted out early in their careers, they were not allowed to rejoin with our office, even though they were receiving Maine PERS in the municipality. And so it certainly didn't make sense to us. We worked hard with them. There are other examples, sir, of misinformation that perhaps came through human resources back, 20 something years ago, and changes in collective bargaining and the ability to have different retirement formulas and whatnot. And so I think a lot of those play into decision making when anybody's looking at the retirement. I listened to many of your bills today, which are focused on retirement, and those are big decisions, as you can imagine. I appreciate the time, though.
Thank you for that. I think that's very helpful to get those couple examples.
Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Sheriff, for being here. We appreciate all your work. You people do an awful lot of things for the state of Maine, and believe me, it is appreciated. I'm wondering, is it just a dollars and cents thing regarding the transition to Maine PERS? Are there other factors involved as well? Like, does the current plan require that you retire maybe later than you wish to, and Maine PERS would take care of that or anything like that?
Some of it is dollars and cents, as you can imagine. Many of us, myself included, being in a Voyer plan or a 457 or 401 plan, something along those lines, really don't have time out to retire. You can retire, walk away anytime that you want. So having an end a point to retire and make decisions in your career, similar to others that have an ending point, make a big decision. And again, I just happened to be, believe it or not, I was a young deputy at one point, and made that decision back then as a corrections officer to be in a different plan, and now not have the opportunity all these years to get back into Maine State retirement, which is what I think a lot of young officers faced early in their careers.
Thank you for that. And, we all were younger at one time. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee for Sheriff Morton? Being none, Sheriff, again, thank you for being here today. Thank you for your service and making sure that our state remains the safest in the country. Look for me to reach out to you between now and the work session on these bills, just to discuss a matter that came up on another bill, which you may have heard. And I won't ask any questions about it because they would be out of order, but I will reach out to you between now and then.
I look forward to that. I know the example that you're talking to, and I was kind of taken back. So I look forward to having that conversation.
Great. Thank you, sir. Next up to testify in favor is Wade Betters.
Hello?
We can see you and hear you.
All right. I'm Sergeant Wade Betters. I represent the City of Bangor police officers, kind of very similar situation as Captain Miller had spoken about earlier from the fire department. Back in the late 90s, very early 2000s, I was one of the people who got out of Maine State retirement around that time frame. Senator Baldacci had hinted at it before, but Maine State retirement at the time was not really held in too high regard for city employees, at least police officers coming into the job. We were sort of basically, for lack of better terms, sort of steered away from it. There was a lot of talk about whether or not it would be around in 25 or 30 years when we all retired. And so I was told originally that there was a rather sizable debt that the city owed to Maine State Retirement, and it was going away and things of that nature. So bottom line is I was one of the people that got out of it. Right now we have roughly 8 people. We call ourselves the locked out group. So we have at least 8 and possibly adding a few patrol officers that are senior patrol officers now, maybe closer to 11 or 12 total by the time it's all said and done. The points I would like to make here is that, we get into this job for a reason. It is a purpose-driven job. We do like to help people out. There are a lot of good times, but I can tell you there was a lot of bad times too. And I know everyone has bad days and this guy's story is worse than the next. But if you think of it along the lines of 20 years of, high intense situations every now and then, car crashes, death scenes, a lot of stress overload in these jobs now. And we really want people to last a good 20 to 25 years. We're having a hard time in this whole profession to retain our senior police officers. So the job is getting a lot younger, which proves the need why we need to keep some of our senior officers around a little bit longer. And we hope that if we can get this opportunity to buy back into Maine State, that'll have that effect for some of us who still have a good 5 or 10 years maybe left in the tank. That we might have a light at the end of the tunnel to look forward to and feel comfortable that we can put in the time it takes to earn a good retirement. Remember, this is not something that's going to cost the state any money. The city of Bangor is already on board with this plan. They do not stand in our way. They are in support of our attempt to rejoin Maine State Retirement. And this will all come down to whether or not each individual can actually afford to buy in all that time that we've been out of it. And so in a nutshell, we do appreciate you chatting with us, but I can tell you, speaking from the police side of it, we are asking for your help. We need this. It seemed kind of weird to ask somebody, would you please let us spend our own money? But that's the situation that we're in. So we really need this help. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Sergeant, for being here today. Thank you as well for your service to our communities to help keep us safe. Are there any questions for Sergeant Betters from the committee? Seeing none. Thanks for your patience, sir, and for being here today. Next up is Paul Gaspar.
Yes, good afternoon, Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, distinguished members of the committee. Good afternoon. It's very good to see all of you. I hope you all and your families are doing well. My name is Paul Gaspar. I'm the Executive Director for the Maine Association of Police. We represent over 50 municipal agencies and more than 950 sworn law enforcement officers and public safety dispatchers throughout the state from Holton to York. I'm here today to speak on their behalf, as well as all first responders, including our brothers and sisters in the fire service, in strong support of LD 711. Many good points have already been made by the previous speakers, so I just want to highlight a couple of things. In Maine, we are experiencing what is being felt throughout the country at this time as it pertains to the recruitment, hiring, and retention of earnest, qualified individuals to take up the tremendous responsibility of being a law enforcement officer. Over the last 5 years in Maine, we have seen the effects of past and current events, as well as attitudes towards and about law enforcement officers, profoundly impacting our efforts in not only identifying applicants, but also retaining those with 5 or fewer years of service currently in a Maine law enforcement certified position. Because of the ever-increasing expectations placed on today's law enforcement officers, individual officers have been placed in situations that have caused them to reevaluate their service against their personal safety, wellness, as well as that of their spouses and families. And what we're seeing is, as we've all said, I think all of us, the only crimes of being young are lack of foresight and an infinite sense of mortality. And it seems that across the board, one of the most daunting things for a newly hired person in their 20s, after the incredible process they have to go through to become a law enforcement officer is they sit in an HR office with an individual and they're given an enormous packet of information and are asked to make decisions about the next 20 or 25 years of their service. And that's where you see many of the times where they're heavily influenced by opinions and takes of HR and city personnel and how that can affect them later. I think what this bill does, as has been said, is it gives people the opportunity to have something to look forward to, as to right now where it's something they've been permanently barred from. It creates the mechanism to retain the best of our experienced officers in an effort to stem the tide of attrition due to retirements, resignations, and the decisions that are at the forefront of a younger officer's mind with less than 10 years on. I think the important key things is this is not an open window. I mean, there's a very distinct period until January of 2022. It is at the cost of the individual officer as to whether or not they would choose to do that, and gives them an opportunity to partake in that. I cannot stress enough the importance of retaining the folks that we have. And I'm hoping in working with this group at the work session, we can provide those numbers for you. I have a brief estimate of about maybe 75 to 80 members of our membership being impacted. So thank you very much for your time and all your work, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Gaspar, for the detail and the data that you are certain we would have asked. Are there any other questions? Representative Rader.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. We, as a committee, really like to hear about data, but I was wondering if you had any anecdotal stories about recruitment and retention and how this would impact recruitment and retention. How many officers have stories about having to leave or not wanting to join the police force because of that? Thank you.
Sure. Well, I think there's a couple of different venues, Representative, in the fact that in just the recruitment part, we're seeing lower numbers because people are more hesitant to take this type of job on because what they see in the 24-hour news cycle, and it's a daunting thing. It is a calling, but this is the first time where we've seen that impacted. To answer your question, I will, a couple of examples that we have is in trying to retain our most experienced people, which then serve as mentors or field training officers to our newer officers. When those segments of our ranks are on that fence and choosing, look, if I'm not vested yet, so it's a make or break time for me. Am I going to do this for the next 15 to 20 years? Or I can get out now, go into the private sector, maybe not have a defined benefit plan, but will not be saddled with the responsibilities and the worries. I know of one officer, and I did not speak to him beforehand, so I won't identify them, that they had a epiphany moment and had left police work after 10 or 12 years on and having some standing within their department to go to the private sector. And a lot of that had to do with what is my future here and how does that reconcile with what's at the end of the road. And I can speak of my personal experience, you know, in the early to mid 90s in Cape Elizabeth, the only MPERS plan was 65-25. And obviously the city had just gotten out of that program, so our only choice was ICMA. But in the early 90s, I was also one of 250 applicants who wanted that job. I can tell you the last opening that was had, they probably had about 12, of which of the 12, maybe 7 were actually made it to the point of consideration. So it's a stark reality for us today that we haven't seen in years previous in Maine law enforcement.
Thank
So
you so
it's
much.
really significant.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was on mute. I'm sorry. I was getting shaky over here, so I turned it off. Chairman Sylvester has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Mr. Gaspar. If I missed it in your testimony, I apologize, but I assume that you are okay with allowing some of the other groups like firefighters in. If not, I look forward to selling the tickets when you and Ronnie Green wrestle over it.
Well, hopefully it's just arm wrestling, but absolutely, I find it that, this is a very demanding job of all first responders. So if there's that opportunity, we would support that.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Thank you, sir, for being here. Thank you for your patience. That concludes testimony in favor of the bill. We now move to testimony neither for. Michael Colleran from Maine Purse.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Michael Colleran, and I am Chief Deputy Executive Director and General Counsel for the Maine Public Employees Retirement System. Maine Purse is neither for nor against LD 211. We are here to provide information and offer any assistance the committee might need. We understand that LD 711 is intended to address a situation of 12 officers employed by the City of Bangor. The city withdrew from Maine Purse in 2001 and rejoined in 2017. The 12 officers elected to withdraw from Maine Purse along with the city. These officers were not permitted to rejoin Maine Purse in 2017 because, under current law, their elections in 2001 prevent them from ever rejoining while employed by the city. LD 711 is directed at the participating local district retirement program, which is funded by municipalities and other local districts and their employees. It is not funded by the state. Pension contributions for employees who rejoin Maine Purse under LD 711 would be paid by the employees and their employers on a prospective basis. The employees would be able to repurchase the service credit they previously had by repaying their refunds plus interest. Additionally, these employees would be able to purchase service credit for their time as employees in the same capacity since 2001 at the actuarial rate. The defined benefit plans administered by Maine Purse receive favorable tax treatment as long as they comply with IRS requirements. The IRS has issued several rulings to make it clear that it is not permissible to allow an employee to have more than one opportunity to join a governmental pension plan. The employee is allowed a one-time election at the time of first employment or first eligibility to join the plan, whichever is later. The one-time election requirement was put into Maine law in 2009 to align Maine law with federal pension law. Because the one-time election requirement derives from federal law, amending Maine law alone might not be sufficient. However, under the specific circumstances here, where these officers are in another plan provided by the employer that has the same employee contribution rate as the Maine Purse plan, we believe that the officers may rejoin Maine Purse while complying with federal law. We have been working with the sponsor and the officers on a possible committee amendment to accomplish this and make this relief available to anyone in the same circumstances. However, those circumstances are those specific circumstances where the employer provides another plan with the same employee contribution rate. Many of the people you've heard about today who are not able to rejoin Maine Purse are not in those circumstances, and regardless of amendment to state law, would not be able to rejoin under federal law under the current tax structure for Maine Purse participation. Thank you for consideration of this testimony. I would be happy to answer your questions and will be available at your work session.
Thank you, Mr. Colleran. Questions? Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Michael, for always your insightfulness on anything to do with retirement.
Thank you.
I want to zero in on the employer contributions. If I'm understanding this, we'll use the policemen that are asking for this. They will be allowed to buy back in with the understanding that either they have to pay the employer's contribution or their employer has to pay their contribution. Can you enlighten me upon that?
Yes, this bill would do a couple things. One is to allow these people to rejoin main PERS on a going forward basis. On a going forward basis, there would be employer contributions and employee contributions. The bill would also, however, let these officers buy past time, and that would be solely at the officer's cost. We call it actuarial cost. It's quite expensive. These officers understand, at least the ones I've been talking to, understand that it's quite expensive. We provided them estimates. A question earlier today was, well, what numbers are we talking about? Those estimates range from $300,000 to $550,000 to purchase all that time. Because Bangor withdrew in 2001, we're talking about 20 plus years of service that these officers would be buying. That'd be solely at their cost and not at the city's cost.
And if I may ask just a quick follow-up, Mr. Chair. You talk about past time. They would have to buy past time. Would their employer have to make their contribution for past time?
No, and keep in mind the city has been contributing, to my understanding, to the ICMA plan on their behalf during the past time. And I understand that these officers would have the opportunity to transfer ICMA money over to buy past service credited main PERS. And of course, some of that ICMA money may have derived from, in part, employer contributions.
Thank you.
Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Colleran. Couple questions. When they are going, notwithstanding the other testimony that desires of some people who testified, we may be talking about just the Bangor Police Department because of the way their particular retirement plan is structured, and that is consistent with the state plans. Beyond that, it might be an issue.
Yes, the bill before you references a couple of sections in the state pension code that pertain to municipalities or other local districts that provide a Social Security replacement plan other than main PERS. And so there's not very many of those. Bangor is one of them. And the way Bangor has structured their plan with ICMA, the employee contribution rate is the same as main PERS's contribution rate. And that's what permits them to not, that would permit them under federal law to get back in the main PERS because it's the same employee contribution rate no matter which plan they pick. Many, if not all of the other folks you've heard about today who would like to get back in the main PERS are not in that kind of plan.
Okay. Another question, Mr. Chair?
You may proceed.
Thank you. Main PERS seems to have more than one plan. So do you know which plan these people would go into? Is it a special plan or regular retirement plan, or can you enlighten us on that?
Yes, when the city of Bangor rejoined in 2017, they elected a special plan for their police officers. It's what we call Plan 2C. It's a plan where an officer is entitled to retire at 50% of average final compensation with 25 years of service credit.
Thank you.
Representative Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Colleran, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Couple things. Do you have a sense of how many municipalities followed Bangor's route, so went out for a period of time and came back in, and or how many municipalities may still be out of the plan at this point in some other kind of scheme?
I don't have numbers today, but I could get them for you for the work session. It's my sense that there were several who withdrew from main PERS in that same era and would like to get or have rejoined at this point. Times have changed. Back at that time, main PERS was viewed as an expensive plan and employees are easy to find. Now, particularly in law enforcement and firefighters, that's more difficult to find employees. So employers are looking to make their benefits more attractive.
Quick follow-up, Mr. Chair.
You may proceed.
So the way I understand it, that in order for municipalities who were not in a line in the same way that Bangor were having their Social Security benefits and their main PERS benefits aligned, that would be some sort of collective bargaining fix that would have to happen before they were allowed to do that, where the municipalities made those align. Am I reading that right?
They would have to have an alternate plan, and many of them don't, but an alternate plan like the ICMA plan that Bangor has, so they could set one of those up, whether it's through collective bargaining or not. Absent that, the federal one-time election requirement will come into play.
Would it be possible for you to give us an illustration of that?
Sure.
What that would be fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate your work as always.
Thank you, Mr. Langland. Are you clear on the information requests for Mr. Colleran?
Yes.
Thank you.
Colleen.
Thank you. And I apologize, I forgot that we have a different analyst for this subject matter. I'm getting there. If there are no other questions, do you have another question, Chairman Sylvester? Your hand is still raised.
I just question how you're doing such a good job in such a short time. And, with that question rhetorically.
Thank you. If there are no other questions for the committee, from the committee for Mr. Colleran, that will close the public hearing on LD 711.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Drinkwater.
Sorry I buzzed in late there, sir, but I would like this for the workshop on page 1 of the bill, and I'm talking about line 16. It talks about the police officer must, in accordance with Title V, repay contributions. I would like to have our legal analyst give us an interpretation of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I have one question for the analyst for work session, and I could have asked it, but it didn't need to be. I just want to know what the benefit is to the person who's buying back into the program at such a high cost. So if they were to have their $300,000 already saved to do this, then what is the benefit for actually buying that back contribution? So we can discuss that at the work session. Are there any other issues that people want information about for the work session on this bill? Which is perfectly okay to do after we close the public hearing, just for the record. Seeing none. We will not be meeting on Wednesday at a regularly scheduled time because we may be in session. So we will be here again on Friday morning where we have confirmation hearings and we have more public hearings after that. And so Alyssa, Ms. Thompson, unless we have anything else that you want to share with us for the day, for the week, if I miss something, speak now. Are we good? Perfect. The Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing stands adjourned until Friday. Enjoy your day.